Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. You're looking at a live picture from the White House as President Joe Biden expected to speak one more time today on infrastructure. This time, we've already heard remarks from the president on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as they will tap another 15 million barrels, which they've already done once before so far this year. And they said they could potentially do it again later on in the coming months, in the winter months, depending on the gas prices and various other topics there. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take you to it live once it happens in full here on Live Now from Fox. Until then, I want to go out to Michigan as Speaker Nancy Pelosi was in Michigan today at the Our Next Energy facility as they're helping with electric vehicles and different vehicles of the future and batteries there. As you can see, she toured the facility earlier on today. I will take you to these remarks from Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker, as she will likely take some questions as well, hopefully. But I want to take you out to there before Biden speaks on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Debbie Dingell, part of our leadership. When Debbie speaks, we all listen. We learned that a long time ago. That would be a good idea. It saved time because she had something valuable to say. Thank you, Debbie, for your kind words of welcome. Thank you, and Haley, for the invitation to be here today. Rajiv, thank you for a staggering presentation of something so wonderful. I was coming to see what the impact was of the legislation we passed, a whole package from rescue package, bipartisan infrastructure bill, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the most recent, the Inflation Reduction Act. And I learned a lot about how it translates here. Well, yesterday morning I began the day in Silicon Valley at the Stanford Linear Accelerator. I say that because we can see that everything in science is very much connected when we're looking to the future. And some of what I'm seeing today is the transformation from the hard science to the consumer product and keeping America number one. Isn't it great that it's called One? Yes. It has many reasons. It has integrity. It has oneness. It's an acronym, Our Next Energy, and that's a great prospect. Thank you, Mujib, for the tour you gave us, the leadership you have provided, and the history in which you placed all this, that cars really almost began electric, and now we're returning to that with advanced technology, lower cost, and better use of minerals, and thank you for that. And that's all about workforce development, which we see so clearly here. I want to just say how excited President Biden would be to see what is happening here, not to speak for him, but to speak for his values, because he's always about declaring our independence as a nation in terms of the supply chain and being resourceful in how we do that. And you have been doing that, not only by how you have adapted your needs and encouraged local our country's development, but how you are part of it as we go forward. And your accommodation of different minerals and different things related to cost and availability. And as you said, what is plentiful is less expensive. So supply chain, lower supply, bigger price, more plentiful, lower price. So thank you for that. In terms of my two colleagues here, on a recent visit, right before we passed the CHIPS and Science bill, I was with Congresswoman Dingell and other members of the delegation, and we were at the UAW hall, understanding that we could not continue automotive manufacturing without more chips. 1,000 in a car, 2,000 at least in an electric car, and Debbie was very helpful in making sure we had the votes to pass the bill, because she understood.
You're just listening in there to Nancy Pelosi. I want to go out to the president as he speaks on infrastructure there at the White House one more time here on Live Now from Fox.
Look at that screen.
So great.
Pretty good. Hello, everybody. Well, good afternoon, and I want to thank Secretary Granholm and everyone on the screen for being part of this today. And It's been a rough 4 or 5 years for the country, but a lot of folks here are still struggling. But there's some real bright spots. 10 million new jobs have been created just since my presidency began. 3.5% unemployment, the lowest in 50 years. Nearly 700,000 manufacturing jobs created since I took office, and y'all are going to create a lot more up there on the screen. Some people gave up on American manufacturing, but not me, not the Secretary, not the American people. Because where in the heck is it written that we can't be the manufacturing hub of the world? Well, we are now, and that's what we're going to be announcing, talking about today. It's about my industrial strategy to bring America back, manufacturing and industries of the future, semiconductors and clean energy. That includes the bipartisan infrastructure law that I signed, and it was a once-in-a-generation investment in our nation's roads, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, water systems, and high-speed internet. Federal infrastructure funding is helping states and cities with these projects all across the country. But the infrastructure law also invests in people and companies that are going to build our future, like electric vehicles and advanced batteries that are going to power those vehicles. This is critically important because the future of vehicles is electric. But the battery is a key part of that electric vehicle. And right now, 75%, as the folks on the screen can tell you, 75% of that battery manufacturing is done in China. And for some battery components, critical materials, China controls nearly half the global production. But China's battery technology is not more innovative than anyone else's. In fact, our national labs, our research universities, our automakers led the development of this technology here in America. But by undercutting U.S. manufacturers with their unfair subsidies and trade practices, China seized a significant portion of the market. Today, we're stepping up to hold to take it back, not all of it, but bold goals and actions to make sure we're back in the game in a big way. And we're doing it right away, centered around workers and communities and building the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. Last year, I signed an executive order setting the goal of having 50% of all new cars and trucks sold by 2030 to be electric vehicles. Auto companies, unions, and the federal government are all working together to meet this goal. I signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest investment in climate ever in all of history. It includes tax credits for up to $7,500 for folks to buy new electric vehicles or fuel cell vehicles made in America. And for the first time, you get a tax credit for buying a used electric vehicle. The CHIPS and Science Act that I signed into law is literally supercharging our efforts to make semiconductors, those small computer chips that power our everyday lives, including our vehicles here in America. And the infrastructure law is investing $7.5 billion to build electric vehicle charging stations all across America. So finding a place to charge up your vehicle is going to be as easy as pulling into a gas station. So earlier today, I talked about our efforts to keep gas prices down at the pump without delaying or deferring our transition to clean energy. Electric vehicles are part of that plan. And since I took office, electric vehicle sales have more than tripled. But with more electric vehicle sales, the demand for batteries and the critical minerals that go into those batteries has grown and is going to continue to grow. In fact, the demand for critical materials is set to skyrocket by 400% to 600% over the next several decades. The demand for minerals like lithium and graphite is expected to increase by as much as 4,000%. Some see a challenge, but we see an opportunity, a real opportunity, to shift to a net zero sum carbon world in one of the most significant economic transitions since the Industrial Revolution. That's not hyperbole, that's a fact. We're also confronting it head on with American ingenuity and American jobs. That's why my infrastructure law invested over $7 billion in battery supply chains that are going to bolster U.S. capacity for processing, manufacturing, and recycling critical minerals like lithium, nickel, and graphite. And that's why today I'm proud to announce $2.8 billion in awards to 20 companies represented on this screen across 12 states funded by the infrastructure law to build electric vehicles in a battery future here in America. Nearly 200 companies applied for these grants. Only 20 were selected, from Georgia to North Carolina to Nevada to the state of Washington. We have awarded this funding, and we've asked companies how they're going to partner with community colleges, minority-serving institutions, labor unions, and local organizations to provide job training for workers and benefits for the whole community. Together, these 20 companies are going to build new commercial-scale battery production and processing facilities all across America. They're going to develop lithium to supply over 2 million vehicles every year. And that $2.8 billion investment is going to unlock billions of dollars in private investment from these companies. That means the projects are going to generate $9 billion total for American manufacturing and the battery supply chain across America. That's going to create thousands of good-paying jobs, many of them union jobs that require college degrees, that don't require, I should say, college degrees. You know, on top of the $9 billion, since I became president, other companies, including GM, Ford, Honda, Siemens, have announced over $100 billion in new investments to produce electric vehicles, batteries, and charging stations here in America, creating thousands more jobs. Today, I'm announcing the launch of the American Battery Materials Initiative. It's going to coordinate the effort across the federal government and work closely with the private sector, labor unions, tribes, community organizations, and our partners and allies abroad. This initiative is going to be led by the White House and housed in the Department of Energy with the support of the Department of Interior to secure America's electric vehicle, battery supply chain, and clean energy future. And we're going to do it the right way, respecting the rights of tribes, creating good-paying union jobs, and protecting the environment and local communities. Folks, one more thing about how we're going to do this. You may have seen the news reports describing Republicans who voted against the infrastructure bill, attacking Democrats for passing it because it's socialism. Well, now quietly and privately, they're sending me and the administration letters asking for money from the same bill, talking about how important the projects would be for their districts if we just got them the money. I was really surprised to find out there were so many socialists in the Republican caucus. But even if they voted against it, I made a promise when I was running and when I got elected. I'd be the president for all Americans. So we're going to build a better America together, whether they voted for it or not. If the district deserves the project, they're going to get it. Let me close with a question. I asked many business leaders, when the United States decides to invest considerable resources in a new industry that we need to build up, does that encourage or discourage businesses from getting in the game? And the answer is it encourages them to get in the game in a significant way. Federal investments attract private investments. It creates jobs and industries. It demonstrates we're all in this together. And that's what today's about. I've never been more optimistic about America's future. We just have to remember who in God's name we are. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity if we work together. And with that, let me turn it over to Secretary Granholm. Madam Secretary.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for inviting me to be part of this today. This moment is one of...
You're a critical part of this. You're not just invited.
Well, I know, but I just feel like this especially, for so many reasons, is one of the greatest pleasures of serving in your administration, because I can't help but think back to a call that I received from your office, from the White House, 13 years ago when I was serving as governor of Michigan. And on that call, we found out that the then Obama-Biden administration was awarding Michigan a dozen grants to help and develop and assemble the guts of Car 2.0, which is the electric vehicle. And I remember telling my staff then, this is a game changer for us. Our state's economy, as you know, because of the bankruptcies, was at rock bottom amid that crisis. But you lifted us from our knees and saved us, gave us opportunity. And that opportunity now being reflected in the next step of battery making in America. So the commitment to have us head where the globe was heading, into clean energy and to these new jobs, good paying jobs that it could bring. Those grants at that time generated thousands of jobs for Michigan. They gave confidence to the industry, helped us develop a renaissance. So imagine what these grants are going to mean for these communities that are represented here. It is, I'm just so honored to be part of this, because the companies behind these projects believe that with this agenda on the books, this is the time to bet big on a clean energy boom that's made in America. They're putting their own investments on the table to help build up this battery supply chain that we need to make this all-electric future of transportation real. And together, we're seizing this opportunity together to boost American competitiveness and strengthen local economies and create 8,000 jobs, good-paying jobs all across the country. So 13 years ago, Joe Biden visited Detroit to announce grants that would make Michigan a leader in American EV battery production. I was proud to stand with you then, sir. I'm proud to stand or sit with you now here at the White House as we set to make America a leader in global electric vehicle battery production. And I know we've got all these great people here on the screen who are the grantees, the awardees, who are going to make this happen across the country. I want to ask a couple questions and, of course, invite you to participate, sir, as you see fit. Let's start with Phil Brown. Phil is the president of ICL Group's Phosphate Specialties Solutions. And Phil, my understanding, you're there in St. Louis, that your St. Louis plant is going to employ more than 150 people. And I wonder if you can tell us about the work that you're doing there with unions and make sure that the folks in the surrounding community can take advantage and can access these good-paying jobs.
Absolutely, Secretary Granholm and President Biden. We are excited. We really are excited. St. Louis has a rich history of manufacturing, and we have a big part of that, and we are really proud to be a part of that. We've been manufacturing here on the Mississippi River for over 140 years in South St. Louis, and we're excited to bring these 150 new manufacturing jobs with the support of our local union. We have our union president, local union presidents, Mark Smith, here with us. We've had great support with them and the local community around this project. And, we're also going to bring a couple of dozen STEM and science engineering type of roles. And we're doing a lot of outreach with the local community to make sure that those jobs are coming from our local diverse communities here in St. Louis.
Phil, you mind if I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Understand this plant's the first of its kind in the United States. How's this plant going to strengthen our battery supply chain in the United States?
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. This will be the first of its kind in the Western world to produce lithium iron phosphate. And it's really going to utilize our abundant resources that we have here in North America and the USA to develop a secure supply chain that the entire industry can rely upon, that they can get the materials that they need to make their investments to develop the further downstream products from where we will start. Lithium iron phosphate will be something like 30% of the cathode types of lithium batteries in the future. And that's huge, and it's important that we show the support from ICL's perspective. You've shown the support from the U.S. government side to support those clean energy initiatives. And last, I would say, The technology to produce lithium iron phosphate was invented here in the U.S., and it's time to bring the manufacturing of it back to the U.S. as well.
If I may. One of the things that has excited me about what we're doing here and beyond is that a lot of these jobs are going to be good paying jobs that do not require a four-year degree. Are you reaching out to the community colleges? You're reaching out to the community writ large to let them know that they could qualify for some of these jobs?
Absolutely. We have a number of different ways that we work locally with civic organizations, student-based organizations, community colleges, our local unions, to make sure that we're recruiting, training, and enabling those people for these jobs. We work with organizations like Construct Reach that reaches out to high school students coming out of school to make sure they're aware of manufacturing jobs and construction jobs, that they know what the opportunities are. Our partners in this project as well, people like McCarthy, we have aligned goals around those things. They're great supporters of pre-trade union programs, apprenticeship programs, and we'll be working together with civic organizations like Greater St. Louis, who was part of the Build Back Better plan and putting forward a plan for St. Louis as part of that, and making sure that we're reaching out to our local communities and making sure that we represent the diversity of St. Louis in these projects.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, that's so awesome. Thanks, Phil. Let's now go to Kimberly Medford, who is the president of NTEC. Kim, I know that your company has plants all across the world and you produce battery separators. Lots of places to invest across the globe. Tell me, why is NTEC choosing to scale up operations in the United States? Oh, you're muted.
You're still muted,
you.
Kim.
Wait, Kim. Wait, can you hear?
Can you hear us? Because you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
It's okay.
That is my failure to follow instruction, even though your team was amazing, Mr. President, in helping us to know what to do. Thank you both so much for having us here today. You're right. You could do this in lots of places in the world. And I just really want to start by thanking our local delegation for how supportive they've been in Oregon. Senators Wyden and Merkley and Congressman DeFazio and Schrader and the whole Oregon delegation have been just amazing teammates in the overall effort to really spur the U.S. to a leading role in the global adoption of clean advanced battery technologies. You know, we've all experienced supply chain disappointment in the last couple of years driven by foreign imports. Investments in trusted U.S. supply just simply mitigates these risks. We want to be part of creating more American jobs, producing the most advanced technologies for batteries in the world to the cleanest environmental standards right here in the United States. We need to build our supply chain that our customers and the American consumer can really trust. We experienced great growth since we started building separators for lithium batteries back in 2001 in Oregon, and our early success was in China. So we primarily exported until about 2013, when there was a massive decline in our sales because China, through state-sponsored competition and high tariffs, made it really, really difficult, if not impossible, to compete. But we continued to innovate. We did that in the United States, and we just remained confident that the U.S. domestic lithium battery market and the EV market would develop here, and here we are. So the strong support from you, from your administration, is exactly what we've been hoping and planning for. And now we get the fighting chance to compete globally right here from the United States with American operations. We fully expect the U.S. battery and EV markets to grow rapidly. We know speed and scale are important, and we're vertically integrated to make the most of our own production equipment and are ready with our investments in both Oregon and Nevada to produce that equipment and scale rapidly. So commitment to supply chain, the growth, the longevity that we all need for this EV market that's finally here. We're super excited about it. and incredibly confident that it's the right thing to do to make our product with U.S. labor to U.S. environmental standards and without risk that we all stand to face with imports that could stop at any time.
I have two questions. Well, actually, one comment and two questions. I think I should acknowledge, which I have in the past, one of the really significant changes that took place was in the first year. I had the CEOs of all the major American automobile manufacturers out on the lawn of the White House. And that's when Mary Barra, president of General Motors, said after having a very different view that she was going to go all electric and she's going to move in that direction. And so I think she deserves, because then every other company lined up. But one of the things that I always tell my staff, we assume that everybody knows what we know when we're speaking. And there's going to be people listening to this who aren't part of this industry. Can you explain what a separator is?
Sure.
I want to help the press.
Absolutely. So you can kind of see right behind me these rolls of white film. So a separator is the insulator that goes between the anode and cathode in the lithium battery. It allows for the ions to flow, but it protects those two components from touching, which we all know is a bad thing. It creates a minimum a short and a maximum a fire. And so it's a very important insulator, and that is what we make.
Thank you, Madam President.
Welcome.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Kim. Let me turn now to Kent Masters, who is the CEO of Albemarle, which is a global company with a home base in North Carolina. I understand, Kent, that you also have close ties to the region as well. I wonder if you can tell us about your plans to work with the community to ensure that they too are benefiting from the investments.
Yeah, so our headquarters is based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the facility where I'm at today is in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, about an hour from Charlotte. And we plan to open a new mine here. It's actually a brownfield mine that we've owned for quite some time. It was shut down in the 80s. And with this grant, we'll be able to start up the mine. But the grant is for a separator facility that will employ about 200 highly skilled full-time jobs and another couple hundred roles during construction. Those will be, the 200 will be long-term roles, highly skilled, $90,000 a year or so salary base. And then we are working locally with the community with Cleveland Community College, a local community college. About $5 million of the grant is going into a program to teach the skills that are necessary to apply for these roles. So we're working locally with the community to teach the local workers how to apply for those jobs and the skills necessary to be successful working with us.
Can I ask a question?
You don't have to ask me. You should jump in.
I'm told this new plant's going to produce enough lithium to help power 750,000 vehicles a year. And tell us about how this could be a game changer for the battery supply chain in the United States. How's it going to affect that?
Well, this will be a major facility relative to the lithium that's produced in the U.S. today. So we're a world leader in lithium production. We're one of the few companies producing lithium from U.S. resources. We do that today in Silver Peak, Nevada. We've been operating that facility since 1966, and we're in the process of doubling that. But it's a smaller facility compared to this. This will be a world-scale facility when we get the mine operating in the concentrator. And then we're also actively looking for a location in the U.S. to build a conversion facility. So after we recover the product from the mine, we concentrate it, then we go through a conversion facility that makes the high quality lithium salts that are necessary for the EV battery industry. So it is from the resource in the ground, converted in the U.S., processed to the high quality materials that ultimately will go into a battery manufactured in the U.S. So it is that full supply chain. It's not the only facility like this we'll need in the U.S. to be self-sufficient, but it's a good start.
What response are you getting from the community? Are they aware of what's about to happen in terms of the expansion?
Yeah, so this facility is operated. So Kings Mountain, the mayor refers to the town as a mining town. It's got a history because mines have operated here, and there is a quarry next door to this. So mining has been operating in this town for quite some time. We've engaged with the community. So we mine in other parts of the world, and part of our DNA in the organization is to engage with the local community and bring them along with the project. So we're in the process of opening a storefront in Kings Mountain, the downtown area, where we'll hold town halls. We've had a couple of town halls, but not in that facility yet. We'll talk to the community. We tell them what's happening. We get their input. We adjust to that, and we bring them along in the process. So that's a little bit unique, but it comes from the mining industry, and we're bringing what we've learned around the world to the U.S. From a mining standpoint.
Well, the reason I knew that, and I wanted to make sure people knew that you were reaching out, that it matters. Inform the community what you're doing and what's there and why it's going to be safe and so on. So thank you for doing that.
Great.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the question.
All right, thanks, Kent. And then last, I think we have time for one more. Last but not least, we have CEO of American Battery Technology Company. That's Ryan Meltzert over there on the screen. Ryan, thanks for being here. Thanks for being patient. I know your company's working on a new technology to produce battery-grade lithium hydroxide. To the president's point earlier, most people probably don't know what that means, but maybe you can describe for us what that means and what the technology could unlock for electric vehicle battery production in the U.S.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having us. The way that lithium is made today globally really comes from one of two different pathways. So lithium is held in hard rock ores, which are mostly located in West Australia. And they're also located in brines and aqueous solutions, mostly in South America. And those are very proven and conventional legacy type processes of how lithium is made and manufactured today. Like was just mentioned, unfortunately, the US is almost a non-player in the lithium game. Less than 1% of all lithium products made globally are made within the US. And part of that is because we don't have large amounts of those conventional types of resources. So instead of trying to follow the footprint of what other companies are doing, we looked at different types of lithium deposits. So within Central Nevada, there is a type of deposit that contains very large amounts of lithium that's called a sedimentary claystone deposit. But to date, nobody has ever been able to extract lithium from it in an economically competitive fashion. So over the past few years, we've been working to develop a ground up new type of process that can make this type of battery grade lithium hydroxide from this new type of abundant domestic US resource. About 2 years ago, we won a different Department of Energy grant at the R&D level to really prove out this technology. And now through this next set of funds, we're building our first commercial scale lithium refinery in Central Nevada that will really expand the types of resource base the US has access to and will help get the US back in the game of providing domestic battery materials.
Let me ask you a question. Tell us about why you're confident in the outlook for the U.S. battery market. Why are you confident? Because we're investing a lot in you, but you're also investing in a hell of a lot.
We definitely are, and we appreciate your investment and your confidence in us. I would say that over the past 5 to 10 years, there have been large amounts of multi-billion-dollar electric vehicle factories made in the U.S., large amounts of multi-billion-dollar electric battery facilities formed in the US. But if you go one step upstream of that, almost 100% of the materials that those facilities source come from outside the US. So those vehicle and cell factories, if there are natural supply chain disruptions, if there are political disruptions, all those multi-billion-dollar factories become starved of feed and really cannot produce anything that they're trying to make. So it makes the US and the US industry very vulnerable to be that reliant on outside materials. So the built-in demand is already there in the US. We have great relationships with the cell manufacturers and the vehicle manufacturers who are really hungry to buy these materials from US-based resources. And up until now, it really has been a need for much greater innovation, to put the effort in, to really go for the first of kind system development and the willingness to take risk, to bring a new type of resource to market. And I think that's always been one of America's strengths, to really take that risk and build these first of kind systems. And again, like I said, we're happy that you and the country are taking this risk with us.
You're doing it, and happy for your innovation. Thank you.
Yeah, so great. Thank you so much, Ryan, and Kimberly Medford from NTech Manufacturing, and Phil Brown from ICL Group, and Ken Masters from Albemarle, and Brian Goldner and Henry Van Ruyen from Talon Nickel. Thank you for joining us as well. Gene Bertachevsky from Sila Nanotechnologies, Ann Duncan from Sierra Resources, Eric Stopka from Anovian Anode, that's probably it. Mike O'Cronley from Ascend Elements, and Aaron Bent from 6K Inc. Thank you all so much for joining us, for the exciting answers, and it's my pleasure to turn it back over to the man with the cash, President Biden.
Well, I tell you what, I got to congratulate the award winners, and thank you for the work you're doing. I wasn't joking when I said the changes that are about to take place, are taking place now in the next 10 years, are going to have more impact on the world and our country than all the changes in the last 30, 40, 50 years. I really mean it. This is like a new industrial revolution. I mean, we're talking about literally a different world and a safer world. And I am, you know, I think it's, you know, I've been asked by other world leaders, can I define America? And Xi Jinping, I traveled thousands of miles with him when he was vice president. I was vice president in China and the United States. And we were in the Tibetan Plateau, and he looked at me, he said, can you define America for me? I said, yes, one word, and I mean it. Possibilities. Possibilities. It's made us the ugly American in the sense that we thought we could do anything. But everything we set our minds to do, we've been able to do. Been able to do. And it really is amazing what you all are doing. And I think we're going to, your kids and grandkids are going to be looking back at this time as really a platform which everything began to change. So thank you for what you're doing. And by the way, this is not just going to benefit the United States. We may be our own supply chain, but if things continue to move in the right direction, we're going to be supplying the rest of the world as well for a lot of things. So thank you all so very, very much. I can't tell you how enthusiastic I am about the promise you're all providing for us, or what we're going to be able to do. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you, Madam Secretary.
To meet with Xi Jinping, sir, when you go to Asia?
Mr. President, can you help us out just really quick? What is your top domestic priority? Is it inflation or is it abortion?
Mr. President, are you going to tout this new law? Are you going to tout this new law in Georgia, in Wisconsin, in Nevada, in Arizona? Will you go out on the road and tout this bipartisan infrastructure law, sir?
Just hoping to clarify for midterm voters, top domestic issue, inflation or abortion?
All important. Unlike you, there's no one thing. It crosses the board. Domestic, ask me about foreign policy too. There's multiple issues, and they're all important. And so, and we ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. You know that old expression. Thank you. Thank you.
How's your President Xi protecting his battery?
President Biden there holding that round table and certainly taking a couple questions there after the fact. It was a good glimpse inside some of those meetings there in that room as President Biden was also talking about infrastructure and energy as they continue to push that forward there at the White House. President Biden again speaking and also taking questions, saying that the abortion but also infrastructure and inflation, they are all important, not really answering that question too directly there in that White House. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. Welcome back into Live and Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack as we continue on just about 4 o'clock there on the East Coast. And of course, we've heard from President Biden several times today, both on energy as they announced the release of 15 million barrels of oil from the reserve there. Second time, multiple times they tapped into that and they said they could potentially do it again. Also, you heard about infrastructure and energy on lithium-ion batteries and different batteries of the future there with President Biden. Right now, I wanted to get into some remarks, though, right here on Live Now from Fox. Both Democrats and Republicans, we show them all in full. Of course, Mike Pence, former vice president, also former Indiana governor, had some remarks there at an event, the Freedom Agenda and America Future at the Heritage Foundation. I want to take you out to his remarks here on Live Now from Fox.
Well, thank you, Dr. Roberts, for that overly generous introduction, and more importantly, thank you for your extraordinary leadership of the Heritage Foundation. We are all grateful for the way you have stepped into this role and led the flagship of the conservative movement to even greater heights. Join me in thanking Dr. Kevin Roberts briefly. Now, Dr. Roberts and I have known each other a long time. We actually both started out in the state policy movement. He knows the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and it's my great honor to be here to talk about an agenda for the conservative movement for the future. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm honored to be with you all. We gather at a very serious time in the life of our nation. Today, American freedom is under attack. Big media, big government, big tech, and even big business have locked arms to advance an agenda antithetical to some of the greatest traditions of this country of freedom and values. 20 years ago, when I first arrived in Washington, D.C., I never thought I'd live to see a day when the leadership in our nation's capital was more out of touch with the common sense and common values of the American people. But we live in such a time. Liberal policies have created one disaster after another in the history of this nation, but none more so than in the last 2 years. As we stand here today under President Joe Biden and the leadership of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, we have the worst border crisis in our nation's history. Our currency has been debased, with inflation at a 40-year high. A war on energy has launched a crisis at the gasoline pump and a man-made energy crisis in America. Our schools have been transformed into indoctrination centers, and the strength of our nation on the world stage has been cashiered and diminished through a waning commitment to our national defense and through the feckless leadership of this president. But as we gather here today at Heritage Foundation, I'm proud to report, having traveled to more than 32 states over the last 12 months, help is on the way. We are 20 days away from the beginning of a great American comeback. I truly do believe it. I think in 20 days, the American people are going to rise up. Having gotten a full dose of the politics of the American left, unvarnished, seeing the outcome of a weaker America at home and abroad, I truly do believe 20 days from now, in big cities and small towns all across this country, the American people are going to grab the reins back. I believe when all the dust settles, we will have a majority in the House, we will have a majority in the Senate, and we will elect a record number of conservative governors all across America. So get ready. That being said, there's no time like the present to talk about the future. You know, I originally planned to be here at Heritage Foundation back in July, but nature had different plans. I appreciate many of you for rescheduling this delayed presentation. But maybe it's what we call at my house God's timing. Because now more than ever, we ought to be thinking not just about Election Day, but about the day after Election Day, and what the agenda will be for really bringing America back, which you and I all know is going to be by returning America to the principles of the American founding, by returning this nation to the time-honored traditions and values and ideals that created unprecedented prosperity in the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. And I want to speak about that today. But before I do, let me pay a debt of gratitude and honor to the Heritage Foundation. You know, Heritage Foundation, for me, anytime I come, always feels a little bit like a homecoming. I first ran for Congress back when Ronald Reagan was in the White House. I lost. Twice. But I had an opportunity to learn about a place called the Heritage Foundation. And I went back to Indiana after those losses, and I started a state policy group that was inspired by the Heritage Foundation. And all through my years in the Congress, my years as governor of Indiana, I must tell you that the men and women here at the Heritage Foundation, this extraordinary and courageous organization, fueled so much of what we conservatives were able to do in the first decade of this century, in my time in Indiana. And I'm incredibly proud to say that under the Trump-Pence administration, we implemented nearly 2/3 of Heritage Foundation's policy recommendations. No administration in history had ever adopted Heritage policy recommendations faster than ours. And it's because freedom works. But credit where credit is due. As I said, I'm grateful to Dr. Kevin Roberts. I was honored to be a distinguished visiting fellow here at Heritage during my return to private citizenship. But I'm also grateful to his predecessor, my friend Kay Cole James, for her stewardship here and the matchless leadership and visionary leadership of Dr. Ed Fulmer, who I consider both a mentor and a friend. Before I press on to my topic of the day, allow me also to express my deep admiration for the life and the work and the leadership of a man who left us just a few short weeks ago. Phil Trueluck was here for nearly 4 decades at the Heritage Foundation. He served in executive positions. He brought together many of the extraordinary talents that are gathered in this room today and inspired many of the policies that are still celebrated and associated with Heritage Foundation rightly. He was also a truly good man, who I remember when I got through a few tight spots in my career, it seemed like it was Phil Trueluck, came alongside and just said, "Hang in there, Mike." So to his wife, Ann, to all who loved and admired this good man, this principled conservative, we honor the memory of the late Phil Trueluck, and we're grateful for his leadership. You know, the conservative movement has always been built on the notion that ideas have consequences. Conservatism is bigger than any one moment, any one election, any one person. It's about ideas. For nearly half a century, Heritage Foundation has been the conservative movement's idea factory. From the Reagan Revolution, the Mandate for Leadership, inspired the Contract for America, and I can tell you, was right there shoulder to shoulder with us throughout our efforts to make America great again. In the 4 years of the Trump-Pence administration, Heritage Foundation made a difference. And so with a great conservative victory just within our reach, I thought it was altogether fitting to come here to the Heritage Foundation and really describe an agenda that I believe will not just lay a foundation for success for our movement or for our party, but more importantly, will lay a foundation of strength and prosperity for millions of Americans. You know, the Bible says in Proverbs 29, where there is no vision, the people perish. And what's true of a people is also true of a movement. And so I truly do believe it's absolutely essential that we articulate a vision for the path ahead. A vision that's grounded in our highest ideals and grounded in the proven principles that Heritage Foundation has been about all along. And make no mistake about it, Oftentimes with victory comes flexibility. I can't help but think of those days when I arrived in 2001 in Washington, D.C. We had won back the Congress, House, and the Senate. We elected a Republican president in the year 2000 from the state of Texas, a man that I deeply admire. But he brought with him the idea of what he came to be known as compassionate conservatism. But I remember as a feisty new freshman in Congress in 2001 saying, compassionate conservatism sounds a whole lot like big government republicanism. And the battles that would ensue, battles that I wrote about in my forthcoming book, were rearguard actions by conservatives that were literally battling against members of our own party, a White House of our own party that was looking to grow government, grow entitlements, expand the federal government's role in our local schools. And so I come to you today with a life of experience that says that now, more than ever, we need to decide who we are and who we will be. Because victory is at hand, men and women. But when victory comes, we need to make sure and reground ourselves. But there's a healthy debate going on within our movement today. It's the path ahead is not really clearly defined. Some in our movement long for a simple return to traditional conservative agenda of the Reagan era. Others say our movement should be swept along by a new and energetic sense of populism. I truly do believe that we don't have to choose between one at the expense of another. After all, I believe the agenda of the Trump-Pence administration was a marriage of an unapologetic commitment to the foundations of the conservative agenda with thoughtful populist priorities driven by the aspirations of the American people. I'm proud to report during the 4 years of our administration, every single day, we fought for a strong national defense, for free market and free enterprise principles, less government, less taxes, less regulation, and we stood every day for the sanctity of human life. But in our administration, we also heeded the call of the American people. We recognize that border security is national security. We recognize that trade must be free and fair. And we changed the national consensus. And now today in America, the vast majority of the people of this country accept that China is the greatest threat to our security and prosperity in the 21st century. So today, on the cusp of a new era of Republican leadership for conservatives in this moment in history, I think we need to chart a course that doesn't veer off too far in either direction. Our movement cannot forsake the foundational commitment that we have to security, to limited government, to liberty, and to life. But nor can we allow our movement to be led astray by the siren song of unprincipled populism that's unmoored from our oldest traditions and most cherished values. Let me say, this movement and the party that it animates must remain the movement of a strong national defense, limited government, and traditional moral values and life. So in 2022, conservatives have maybe a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save America from decline and decay, to mint a true governing majority that could last for generations. But in order to win, I believe, as Heritage Foundation believes, that we must do more than simply criticize and complain. We must unite around a bold and optimistic agenda. And that was how the Freedom Agenda was born. After I left office, we pulled together a number of former cabinet officials and, frankly, leaders here at Heritage Foundation, including Ed Fulner and Ed Meese and Jessica Anderson, who just does a matchless job at Heritage Action all across America. You could give her a round of applause if you agree with me. But I asked the members, former members of our administration, activists in the movement, I said, answer one question for me. And that is, what have been the ideas that have animated this movement from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump? And let's put it all in one place. And that was where the Freedom Agenda was born. We defined the Freedom Agenda into three parts: American culture, American opportunity, and American leadership. And for those of you following at home, you can go to advancingamericanfreedom.com and read along. We begin with preserving American culture. Andrew Breitbart, who was my friend before his untimely passing, said famously, politics is downstream of culture. And if we allow the radical left to continue dumping toxic waste into the headwaters of our culture, our politics will only get more poisonous over time. The culture we seek to preserve is the culture that's been handed down by generations of Americans who fought for it, defended it, and strengthened it in their time. And at the very core of it is that timeless American principle and belief that we are endowed, each of us, regardless of race or creed or color, by our Creator with certain unalienable rights of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. So for me, it all begins with life. And the Freedom Agenda starts right there. To restore American culture, we must restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law in every state in the country. Now, it's humbling for me to think that thanks to 3 Supreme Court justices that were confirmed during our administration, the Supreme Court of the United States this June sent Roe v. Wade to the ash heap of history where it belongs. The court gave the American people a new beginning for life, but make no mistake about it, it is only a beginning. The battle for life is far from over. In fact, we've probably just reached the end of the beginning. You know, yesterday President Biden actually pledged that if Democrat majorities were reelected in the House and in the Senate, he would use the anniversary of Roe v. Wade in January to codify that infamous decision into law. Well, I've got a newsflash for Joe Biden. On January 22nd, 2023, we're going to have pro-life majorities in the House and the Senate, and we're going to be taking the case for life to every state in America. So I say to my fellow conservatives, now is not the time to shrink from the battle, but to lean into the fight for life with compassion and principle. For I truly do believe that many more are with us than are with them. This is a nation that cherishes life. And I believe if we hold the banner of life high, the American people will rally to our cause.
You were just listening in there to former Vice President Mike Pence as he makes remarks at the Heritage Foundation. We want to take a quick break out of this and give you a couple updates out of our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Here's a live picture overhead in Germantown, Maryland, as they're currently investigating this situation there. It's ongoing right now. As you can see, the FedEx truck there by the gate, a suspicious package investigation causing traffic delays on Wednesday. You can see this is near the Department of Energy there. You can see as they're blocking off this entrance to that facility, a suburb of Washington, D.C. Police say Germantown Road is closed between Crystal Rock Drive and I-270, including ramps 15A and 15B. You can see a few fire engines there on the scene, ambulance, and also a bunch of unmarked police vehicles some distance away from this FedEx truck there at this platform that we continue on. So this is a developing story that we continue to follow here on Live Now from Fox. We also want to show you another potential developing story near our nation's capital. Chad Pergram, our Fox associate, says a suspicious vehicle near the Capitol. SCOTUS K-9 unit picked up something on a vehicle in question. There is a concern about weapons in the vehicle. Fox is told at least 2 persons are in custody. Of course, right now, these are two very separate incidents that we are following here on Live Now from Fox. One closer to downtown Capitol Hill, the Supreme Court, and one in the suburbs at Germantown and near the Department of Energy, a building out there in the suburbs, just a little bit northwest of the capital city there in Washington, D.C., as you can see. That's is also developing, according to Chad Pergram, our Fox associate. So we will both follow both of these situations here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, they're taking these with very much seriousness in Washington, D.C., as well they should. But again, this is a live look overhead from our helicopter shot, suspicious package there in Germantown, Maryland. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. Overhead in Germantown, Maryland, as police are investigating a suspicious package and possibly a FedEx truck there at this facility, this Department of Energy facility there. You can see taking very much precaution there at this scene there in Germantown, Maryland. We don't know a lot of details right now, but they're telling people to avoid the area, and they're also closing some roads between Crystal Rock Drive and I-270, and also including the ramps 15A and 15B. This is a suburb of Washington, D.C., but you can see this FedEx truck near a guard shack outside of a Department of Energy facility there in a suburb of Washington, D.C. This is a ongoing situation that we've seen for the last few hours or so, I'd say, here on Live Now from Fox. So we're just watching overhead. This is not near Capitol Hill at all. This is a little bit outside of the city, but they are also taking this very, very seriously. As you can see, a lot of people there in safety equipment as they were going toward this FedEx truck. We don't know a ton of information right now here on Live Now from Fox. Montgomery County Department of Police assisting the Department of Energy with traffic management. The Fire and Rescue and Explosive Investigations Unit conducting a search of this truck, and their drivers, they're asking people to find alternate routes as this is an ongoing, developing situation. We're also following one a little bit closer to Capitol Hill that is right now not related to this one in Germantown. Of course, Chad Pergram, a suspicious vehicle near Capitol Hill. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court K-9 unit picked up something on a vehicle in question. There is concern about the weapons in the vehicle. Fox is told at least 2 persons are in custody. This is also a developing situation, and right now these are 2 very different situations. One in the suburbs, this one a little closer to the Capitol Hill. We're going to continue to follow both of these ongoing developing stories here on Live Now from Fox, from our nation's capital. But right now, we were going to jump back into that press conference from former Vice President Mike Pence here on Live Now from Fox.
That war-torn land for so many years. But that said, let me be clear. Confident that there are veterans here in this room and looking on. Nothing of that disastrous withdrawal will ever diminish the honor and gratitude the American people feel for all the men and women who fought and defended and sacrificed for our freedom in Afghanistan for 20 years. But you all gathered here know that only a strong America can lead. And that was why under our administration, we rebuilt our military. $3 trillion in defense spending, including $740 billion in 2021 alone. Just as importantly, with some tough love, with our allies around the world, we secured more than $400 billion in increased spending for our common defense from our NATO allies and other allies around the world. But sadly, again, the Biden administration has squandered American strength and credibility while engaging in reckless and unnecessary spending at home. Spending that lit the pilot light of the inflation that is savaging American family budgets. As Heritage Foundation's 2023 Index on U.S. military strength described this week authoritatively, under this administration, U.S. naval and air power are in decline. Pentagon budgets have been flatlined at a time when China continues to float more ships in its Navy virtually every week, continues to redouble its commitment to catch up to our technological advantage. I know it's not being talked about very much, but it's happening. You know, the highest title I will ever hold is DAD. And when I speak about our military, it's a little personal. My son Michael is a captain in the United States Marine Corps. And my son-in-law Henry is a lieutenant in the United States Navy. And we couldn't be more proud of them. And our daughter and our daughter-in-law. Or all of those who serve in the uniform of the United States. And let me say, men and women, they deserve better than the Biden administration is giving to our military and their families today. And so does America. You know, I've always said weakness arouses evil. But peace comes through strength. You know, I think it's important to note our administration was the only administration in the 21st century where Vladimir Putin did not attempt to redraw international lines by force. And it was no coincidence. The truth is, we not only made historic investments in our national defense, but we had a commander-in-chief who was willing to let our armed forces do their job. They took down the ISIS caliphate. They took out their leader without one American casualty. And the worst terrorist in the world, Qasem Soleimani, is gone. It was the credibility of the use of force, the willingness to use American force, and being prepared to use force that made the world a lot calmer place in our 4 years. But how times have changed. As Russia continues its unconscionable war of aggression in Ukraine, I believe the conservatives must make it clear that Putin must stop, and Putin will pay. There can be no room in the conservative movement for apologists for Putin. There is only room in this movement for champions of freedom. Karen and I traveled to Ukraine early on. We found ourselves in Poland with a group called Samaritan's Purse. Had the opportunity to travel across the border in March. I saw sights that I never thought I'd see, other than in a black and white film from the early part of the last century. Women of every age, children of every age, dragged along behind them, with every one of the earthly possessions that they could carry, all in long lines, streaming out of the country. I believe as we stand here today, it's the arsenal of democracy. We must continue to provide Ukraine with the resources to defend themselves. We must continue to bring economic pressure, the most powerful economy in the world, on Russia. And we must continue to provide the generosity, compassion, and prayers of the American people until Russia relents and until peace is restored. I want to be clear on this. John Quincy Adams said memorably, America must never go, quote, abroad in search of monsters to destroy. We never have. It's not who we are. But nevertheless, neither can we afford to ignore the rising tide of enemies of freedom around the world. A resurgent Russia, increasingly aggressive Chinese Communist Party and military, Iran and North Korea. And we have to have a military fit to the task. This means first and foremost funding our military and providing our service members with the resources and training they need to accomplish their mission and come home safe, and make up for the Biden deficit in defense spending that's underway in America today, however unreported. It also means ending the practice of filling the heads of our military personnel with politically correct nonsense and refocusing our military on the mission at hand. And finally, it also means continuing to marshal our allies, as we did in the Trump-Pence administration, to do their part for our common defense. Now, I know there is a rising chorus in our party, including some new voices to our movement, who would have us disengage with the wider world and abandon the traditional values at the heart of our movement. But appeasement has never worked, ever, in history. And now more than ever, we need a conservative movement committed to America's role as leader of the free world and as a vanguard of American values. Finally, as we prepare for that great debate, here on the cusp of what I believe will be a historic victory for our movement, I also want to encourage all of you to continue to be a voice for what Heritage Foundation has always been a voice for. Continue to hold fast to the ideals of our founders and encourage the tens of millions of Americans that follow the work of this extraordinary flagship of this movement to do the same. Hold fast to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. The truth is, conservatives should recognize that we're very likely the last line of defense on the Constitution of the United States. You know, for most of our history, both political parties were committed to the ideals of the American founding and to the principles of the Constitution. But I don't have to tell you that that's no longer the case. We live in a time when liberals routinely demean the American founding, and today the left seeks to rewrite our Constitution, erase the Second Amendment, cancel freedom of speech and the First Amendment, the freedom of religion, and redefine our basic liberties. That's why conservatives, I believe, in this moment should rededicate ourselves to defend the principles at the heart of the Republic. Because if we don't, no one will. President George Washington said memorably, "The Constitution is the guide I will never abandon." And so too should we say. You know, every office holder in America takes the same oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I took that oath in January of 2017 to become your vice president. My left hand on a family Bible and the Bible of our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. At a time when the radical left seeks to rewrite and reject the principles at the heart of our Constitution, the American people must know that conservatives will not simply pay lip service to keeping faith with the Constitution, but that we will always keep our oath. That we will keep our oath, as the Bible says, even when it hurts. We will stand for the Constitution. We will uphold its principles, even when it would be politically expedient to do otherwise. Because if conservatives don't defend the Constitution, we won't just lose elections. We'll lose our country. So men and women of the Heritage Foundation, that's the freedom agenda. And no time like the present to think about the future. Because the future's coming fast. I have every confidence that when 20 days have passed, we'll be in a new era in America. An era ripe with opportunity. And not just a political comeback, but an American comeback. an opportunity for the American people to advance the principles that they know will make us stronger and more secure and more prosperous, and will strengthen the foundation under the timeless values that have created the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. I just want to encourage all of you here at Heritage to continue to do what you've always done. Continue to defend our heritage of freedom without apology. Continue to guide and direct this movement. As majorities arrive on Capitol Hill, they will look again, as we did in the past, to this place. And I encourage you to step up and lead. Give them the guidance to be able to steer a course back to a boundless American future. And I will thank you in advance, because I know you will. Because I know Heritage Foundation. I've been around here for a while. I got the gray hair to prove it. But I also have faith. You know, in my years as your vice president, my opinion of the American government occasionally went down. And has done so in the last 2 years. But every single day of my public life, my opinion of the American people has gone up. This is a great people. I've seen the American people in good times and in bad. In the wake of natural disasters, I've stood with soldiers in far field places. I've stood with members of law enforcement. I've seen the selflessness of our healthcare workers. I can't help but think, when I think of the American people, of what King Solomon said when he was tasked with leadership. He was asked for what he would pray. And he said, give me a discerning heart to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? I love that prayer for 2 reasons. Number one, like millions of Americans throughout our generation, he knew whose he was. He knew to look up. But he also knew who he served. And I just want to say to Heritage Foundation, if we will simply renew our faith in him who has ever guided this extraordinary experiment in freedom for all these years, if we will simply continue to stand firm for that heritage of freedom and values that has made our nation great, and if we'll also understand and believe that this is a great nation, a good, compassionate, decent nation that will rally to our cause, I know the best days for freedom and for America are yet to come. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless America.
You were just listening into former Vice President there, Mike Pence, as we continue on here on Live Now from Fox. We're currently following 2 very developing stories out of our nation's capital as well. First, I want to take you out right now to this scene there, just a block or 2 away from the U.S. Capitol and SCOTUS, and also the Library of Congress, as we're currently trying to follow this scene as closely as we can. Of course, our Fox associate Chad Pergram says a suspicious vehicle near Capitol and SCOTUS. This scene, a K-9 unit picked up something on a vehicle in question. There is a concern about weapons in the vehicle. Fox is told at least 2 persons are in custody. This, of course, a developing situation. We've seen a lot of Capitol Police on the scene there, just a few blocks away. Of course, Capitol Police, they're investigating this suspicious vehicle, 100 block of East Capitol Street. They're advising people to please stay away from the area. They're also trying to figure out what's going on here, and obviously blocking off the roads here, just as you can see the Capitol building in the background there on this Wednesday afternoon. We're following this story here on Live Now from Fox. This one just very developing within the last half hour or so, as it's just 4:30 on the East Coast in our nation's capital. Of course, we're following that scene right now. We're also following another suspicious package in a FedEx vehicle at the security gate outside of a Department of energy facility there, just a northwest suburb of Washington, D.C. They're investigating this. They're also closing down some roads, similar to what they're doing near the U.S. Capitol. But those details certainly very limited right now here on Live Now from Fox. Very preliminary information. But this scene has been going on for 4 or 5 hours right now as they continue to investigate this one. The fire rescue explosive units conducting a search. They're advising drivers to seek an alternate route as they've closed down parts of roads near a highway, near I-270 there in Germantown, Maryland. So these are two very developing scenes that we're watching here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, we're following both of them very, very closely as right now, nothing connects the two. We have not seen any reports of that as these two scenes are both developing there in our nation's capital, some miles apart, but two very developing headlines that we're following here. One near our Capitol in the top left screen that we're seeing right now, Capitol Police there on hand, and you can see some other units there as they're trying to solve what is going on. Police are investigating this vehicle, suspicious vehicle there, and they're also looking into a suspicious package in the bottom right picture you're watching here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, we're going to keep an eye on both of these feeds as they are continuing to develop here on Live Now from Fox. As you can see here, I want to take you out one more time to this scene in Germantown, Maryland. You can see a very safe distance away from this vehicle as they're pulling packages out of the back of this FedEx truck. You can see the two people there in very safe explosive gear, some distance away from this FedEx vehicle. And you might imagine why they're using such caution with this suspicious package there, especially in Washington, D.C. or an area around Washington, D.C. to make sure everything is okay. You can just see this ongoing scene. We also might get a press conference coming up in just a little bit, potentially from our nation's capital, as Capitol Police are still on the scene. We really haven't heard anything going on. But the scene we're looking at right now, the suspicious package, you can see they're being dragged out by some sort of rope, some sort of, as they're pulled away from the vehicle. I do not know the tactics behind this, but you can certainly keeping a safe distance far, far away. In the very bottom left portion of our screen, the helicopter overhead here at the Department of Energy building. We're going to keep an eye on both of these scenes here on Live Now from Fox, but we're going to take a quick 2-minute break coming up. Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. We are monitoring these two very developing situations in Washington, D.C. One, the top right corner of our screen is a suspicious vehicle that Capitol Police are currently investigating right now, just a couple blocks away from the U.S. Capitol, also the Supreme Court and the Library of Congress. Also in the bottom right corner, you can see plenty of officials and authorities investigating a potential suspicious package there here on Live Now from Fox. The one in the bottom right is from Germantown, Maryland, just a suburb there. Of course, we're following both of these scenes here on Live Now from Fox. Get you a better look at some of these scenes. It was a FedEx truck in a just outside of Germantown, Maryland. As you can see, they're taking some of the boxes out the back of this FedEx vehicle and keeping a good distance away for safety there. As you can see, they're blocking off this road, this entrance and exit to this Department of Energy building. But we're also following this scene live here just a couple blocks away from the Capitol. You can see plenty of officials there outside of this ongoing situation, developing story with a suspicious vehicle. Plenty of officials out there trying to gather as much information as possible right now here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue on this day, on this Wednesday. Some very big news from around the country, including President Joe Biden announcing the release of 15 million barrels from that strategic petroleum reserve. It's not the first time they've tapped into it, and it might not be the last as well, as they're hinting at potential going back to that, well, again, later on, depending on gas prices and different things. Of course, we heard from President Biden making this announcement earlier today here on Live Now from Fox. We will keep an eye on these two scenes in Washington, D.C., while we watch the remarks from the president from earlier today.
Ready, get set, go? Well, good afternoon. Earlier this year, because of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the price of oil and gas increased dramatically. And I acted decisively at the time, and thanks in part to those actions, the price of our gas has fallen 30% from the summer highs. Now it's down about $1.15 a gallon from their peak during the summer. Gas prices have fallen every day in the last week. Let me repeat, gas prices have come down, and they continue to come down again. They're now down more than 27 cents a gallon in Wisconsin this past week, 27 cents in Oregon, 16 cents in Ohio, 25 cents in Nevada, 17 cents in Indiana in just the last 10 days. And that's progress. But they're not falling fast enough. Families are hurting. You've heard me say it before, but I get it. I come from a family, if the price of gasoline went up at the gas station, we felt it. Gas prices hit almost every family in this country, and they squeeze their family budgets. When the price of gas goes up, other expenses get cut. That's why I have been doing everything in my power to reduce gas prices since Putin's invasion of Ukraine caused these price hikes, these prices to spike and rattle international oil markets. Excuse me. I focused on how we can protect American families from that spike and give folks just a little bit of breathing room, as my dad would say. Today, I'm announcing 3 critical steps that my administration will take to reduce gas prices at the pump. First, the Department of Energy will release another 15 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, extending our previously announced release through the month of December. Independent analysts have confirmed that drawdowns from the reserve so far have played a big role in bringing down oil prices, bringing them down. So we're going to continue to responsibly use that national asset. Right now, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is more than half full, with about 400 million barrels of oil. That's more than enough for any emergency drawdown. With my announcement today, we're going to continue to stabilize markets and decrease the prices at a time when the actions of other countries have caused such volatility. And I've told my team behind me here to be prepared to look for further releases in the months ahead if needed. We're calling it a ready and release plan. This allows us to move quickly to prevent oil price spikes and respond to international events. Secondly, we need to responsibly increase American oil production without delaying or deferring our transition to clean energy. Let's debunk some myths here. My administration has not stopped or slowed U.S. oil production. Quite the opposite. We're producing 12 million barrels of oil per day. And by the end of this year, we will be producing 1 million barrels a day, more than the day in which I took office. In fact, we're on track for record oil production in 2023. And today, the United States is the largest producer of oil and petroleum products in the world. We export more than we import, and I've still heard from oil companies that they're worried that investing in additional oil production today will in case demand goes down in the future, and they're not going to be able to sell their oil products at a competitive price later. Well, we have a solution for that. Today, I'm announcing a plan to refill the Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve in the years ahead at a profit for taxpayers. The United States government is going to purchase oil to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve when prices fall to $70 a barrel. That means oil companies can invest to ramp up production now with confidence they'll be able to sell their oil to us at that price in the future, $70. Refining and refilling the reserve at $70 a barrel is a good price for companies, and it's a good price for the taxpayers, and it's critical to our national security. To put it in context, since March, the average price of oil has been more than $90 a barrel, the highest since 2014. By selling from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve at the higher price of $90 earlier this year, and then refilling it in the future at a lower price around $70, will actually make money for the taxpayers, lower the price of gas, and help bolster production, all while totally consistent with my commitment to accelerate the transition to clean energy. So my message to oil companies is this: you're sitting on record profits, and we're giving you more certainty, so you can act now to increase oil production now. The third thing I'm doing is I'm calling on oil companies to pass the savings on to consumers. Consider this. In the second quarter of this year, profits at 6 of the largest producers, publicly traded oil companies, were more than $70 billion. That's $70 billion in just one quarter, 90 days, $70 billion. So far, American oil companies are using that windfall, the windfall of profits, to buy back their own stock, passing that money on to their shareholders, not to consumers. In fact, in the first half of the year, those same companies spent $20 billion buying back their own stock, and most importantly, buying back the most significant buyback in the last almost a decade. That's great if you own a lot of stock in an oil company, or if you're an executive at an oil company. It puts a lot of money in your pocket. That is how you get paid. But it's not the case for the vast majority of Americans paying at the pump. Here's another thing. When the cost of oil comes down, we should see the price of the gas station at the pump come down as well. That's how it's supposed to work. But that's not what's happening. In the past 2 weeks, the price of oil has fallen $4 a barrel. And you think, and thanks in large part to the steps we've taken this year, the price of oil has fallen nearly $40 a barrel since mid-June. That's a 30% drop in the price of a barrel of oil. But guess what? Gas prices haven't fallen that much. And it's not right. Gas prices at the pump should be lower. In fact, if retailers and refiners were earning the average profit they've made over the last 17 years, Americans would be paying at least 60 cents less per gallon for every gallon they buy. Say that again, 60 cents less for every gallon they buy. That makes a big difference in a family. My message to the American energy companies is this: you should not be using your profits to buy back stock or for dividends. Not now. Not while a war is raging. You should be using these record-breaking profits to increase production and refining. Invest in America. for the American people. Bring down the price you charge at the pump to reflect what you pay for the product. You still make a significant profit. Your shareholders will still do very well, and the American people will catch a break they deserve and get a fair price at the pump as well. One more thing I want to mention today. Our country needs to pass permitting reform to accelerate the development of clean energy. Right now, the process of getting clean energy projects approved is too cumbersome and too time-consuming. So I'm asking the Congress, pass a permitting bill to speed up the approval of all kinds of energy production, from wind to solar to clean hydrogen, because we need to get this moving now, quickly, now. It would take, if we do this, it would take historic clean energy investments that I signed into law and put them into action. In fact, one independent analysis has already estimated that the $369 billion we're making in federal investment that will generate, if we just that, will generate $1.7 trillion in total public and private investments in the years ahead. You can increase oil and gas production now while still moving full speed ahead to accelerate our transition to clean energy. That way we can lower energy costs for American families, enhance our national security at a very difficult moment. Let me close with this. I know it's been a rough 4 or 5 years for the country. For a lot of families, things are still tough. The choices made by other countries are affecting the price of gas here at home. That's why I've been acting so aggressively. Without the steps we've taken over the past several months to ramp up production and lower prices and get relief to consumers, gas prices would be higher than they are today. And we'll keep doing everything we can to keep it going, to ensure that our energy independence and security is available, and to lower gas prices here at home, and to give folks a little bit of breathing room. We just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America, for God's sake. There's not a single thing we can't do when we put our minds to it. And we can strengthen our energy security now, and we can build a clean energy economy for the future at the same time. It's totally within our capacity, totally within our capacity. Gas prices are coming down. We're going to do everything we can to make sure they continue to come down and companies act responsibly so it's reflected at the pump. Thank you all, and may God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. President, what is your response?
I don't hear. Can you speak louder?
What is your response to Republicans who say you are only doing this SPR release to help Democrats in the midterms?
Where have they been the last 4 months? That's my response.
Is it politically motivated, sir?
No, it's not.
3 weeks before the midterms.
Look, it makes sense. I've been doing this for how long now? It's not politically motivated at all. It's motivated to make sure that I continue to push on what I've been pushing on. And that is making sure there's enough oil that's being pumped by the companies so that we have the ability to be able to produce enough gas that we need here at home, oil we need here at home, and at the same time, keep moving in the direction of providing for alternative energy. That's what I've been doing. Now, the problem is these guys are asleep. I don't know where they've been. And they seem, the price at the pump should reflect what the price of a barrel of oil costs. And it's not going down consistently.
Mr. President, do you understand that there's martial law in parts of Ukraine? What does that say to you, sir, about where his thinking is on the war in Ukraine right now?
I think that Vladimir Putin finds himself in an incredibly difficult position. And what it reflects to me is it seems his only tool available to him is to brutalize individual citizens in Ukraine, Ukrainian citizens, to try to intimidate them into capitulating. They're not going to do that. Thank you.
Sir, do you want to ban?
You were just listening in there. President Biden earlier today here on Live Now from Fox as he was talking about releasing those 15 million barrels from that strategic petroleum reserve. Again, we are following several breaking news stories out of Washington, D.C. This, again, is a live look as police investigating a suspicious vehicle near Capitol Hill, just a couple blocks away from SCOTUS and also the Library of Congress. Right now, we're continuing to try to get more information. Of course, this a tweet from the U.S. Capitol Police on the scene. They say 3 people are being detained while they continue to investigate. They will put out more confirmed information as they get it. So those are very preliminary details there near the Capitol Hill near SCOTUS here on this Wednesday afternoon. We're also following a scene a few miles away as there's a suspicious package in a possible FedEx vehicle near a Department of Energy facility in Germantown, Maryland. This a live look as you can see a package that they've pulled out of the back of this vehicle, taking a lot of precaution, asking people to stay away from the area as the explosives unit is on the scene there in Germantown, Maryland. We're going to continue to follow both of these stories here on Live Now from Fox as we are on this Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us live, raw, and unfiltered following these 2 developing stories. But first, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. These are 2 scenes we're following from Washington, D.C. The DMV there, as you can see, 3 people are detained with that suspicious vehicle near the Supreme Court in Capitol Hill, just a few blocks off there. We're learning new details within the last 45 minutes or so on this developing story. The scene in the bottom right as police investigate that suspicious package in Germantown, Maryland, has been going on for quite some time, some 4 or 5 hours right now, as we've seen some explosive units on the scene there as they're taking a lot of precaution outside of this Department of Energy building. As you can see, the security shed there just next to that FedEx vehicle. Well, we're going to continue on here on Live Now from Fox and monitor both of those scenes. We want to thank you so much for continuing to follow along live, raw, and unfiltered here as we just passed 5 o'clock on the East Coast. Of course, we're also following over the past 2 or so weeks the trial involving Daryl Brooks and the Christmas parade attack that killed 6 people and injured some 60 other people. Prosecutors plan to possibly rest their case and then go into jury deliberations later on this week. So they plan to rest their case today. I want to take you out to this trial here on Live Now from Fox. We will get a report from our Fox 6 associates coming up within the hour, but I want to take it out to you as they wrap up testimony from various officials there at this unfortunate situation. This trial, as Daryl Brooks continues to represent himself. So let's listen in live here on Live Now from Fox.
Like to highlight some specific areas, starting with the interior of the vehicle. Would you have processed the entire passenger compartment and cargo space of this vehicle?
Yes.
And what types of things would you have been looking for, sir?
Based on my former experience, looking for surface types that might contain potential DNA evidence. So specifically, anything that's in the vehicle that would have been handled to control the vehicle, or handled in a repetitive manner, or with some kind of force. So for example, the steering wheel, the gear shifter, those items were swabbed by myself for the potential of DNA. We also looked at surfaces within the vehicle and processed those for the possible presence of latent fingerprints.
Do you remember locating an object on the front passenger seat of the vehicle?
Yes.
I'm going to ask that we display to the witness only Exhibit 117. Do you recognize what's shown in Exhibit 117, sir?
Yes, there's a hat that's on the front passenger seat cushion.
Is that the way the object looked when you found it?
Yes.
Move to admit 117, permission to publish, Your Honor.
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. Exhibit 117 is received. Permission to publish granted.
Could you please, it's a touch screen in front of you, circle the hat that you just described for the jury? And then to your left, sir, on the witness stand, before you took the stand, I placed an item up there that's been marked as exhibit number 87. You see that on the table there?
Yes.
Can you identify exhibit 87?
Yes, this is the winter style hat that I collected from that front passenger seat.
Okay. Like to show another photograph to the witness, exhibit 118, please.
Objection.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Do you recognize the object in exhibit 118?
I do.
Do you believe this photo is a true and accurate representation of the object as you found it on the vehicle?
I do.
Objection. Speculative.
Overruled. Your answer may stand again. Just wait till I rule on the objection, please.
Move to admit 118, permission to publish.
Exhibit 118 is received. Permission to publish granted.
Please describe.
This is a close-up photograph of the clothing items that were pinned to the windshield by the crumpled hood, and it was being held in place by that hood being pinning the items against the windshield, as well as that wiper arm.
Okay. Did you eventually remove these items?
Yes.
What did you find them to be?
It was a detachable hood from a jacket, as well as a winter hat.
And can you just point out on the touch screen which is which?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
That's the hood portion, and that's the hat portion.
Okay, thank you. Did you find any U.S. mail or paperwork inside the vehicle?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes, I did.
Were there any names associated with the U.S. mail or paperwork inside the vehicle?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
What was that name?
Daryl E. Brooks, Jr.
Was there an address, if you can recall?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
There was, but I don't exactly recall it.
Sure. Also on the table next to you, sir, is your report that I've marked as exhibit number 90. Do you see that?
Yes.
Wait. Placed on the table.
Go ahead, Attorney Opper.
Well, objection. How did it get on the table?
Your objections noted. It's overruled. Record will reflect that there's a copy of a crime lab report. It has an exhibit sticker number 90 with the case number of this case. Handing it back to the witness. Go ahead. You may question.
How did it get on the table? Who placed it on the table?
Attorney Opper indicated she placed it there.
When did that happen?
Attorney Opper, go ahead. Continue.
Did you author this report, sir?
Yes, I did.
If you review the report, would you be able to see the address for Daryl Brooks that was noted in the paperwork from the inside of the SUV?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Please
Noted.
do.
Overruled.
Yes, I would.
Please do that, sir.
Objection.
Overruled.
Grounds for the overrule.
The witness may answer.
Grounds for the overrule.
Go ahead, sir.
The address for the pieces of mail that I recovered was 4014 North 19th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53209.
Thank you.
Objection. That should be strike. When he asked the question, he said he didn't recall. So how can you force somebody to recall?
The witness's recollection was refreshed through the use of his report, which he indicated he documented the address. Your objections noted. It's overruled. The answer will stand. Go ahead. Next question, please.
Yes, and actually, if I could back up 1 minute and ask Ms. Gussie to put back up 117. Got to ask a question about 117.
Go ahead.
And if we could display it, please, Madam Clerk.
Nobody got to answer no questions.
Mr. Brooks, please refrain from interrupting. You'll have an opportunity to ask your
I have an
questions
objection
on
of
cross.
how stuff got to the table without my knowledge. That should be known. That should at least be noted for the record.
It was
I wouldn't
noted
be able to do that.
Your objections noted. It's overruled. Go ahead, Attorney Opper.
So that needs to stop happening.
In
It needs
addition
be
to
fair.
the hat,
All right, I'm going to excuse the jury. All right, for the jury.
Can't keep doing stuff without. It should be a fair trial. That's my right. You shouldn't be able to do things without my knowledge. And then pass it off to the jury like that's fair. They deserve to know that too.
The rest of you can have a seat as well. As soon as the jury's out, I'll make a record. All right, Mr. Brooks, you are well aware that the reason
consent to being called
documents
that
are
name.
being put on the
I don't consent to being
witness
called
stand
that name.
are because this court indicated it would limit the movement of the parties due to your custodial status to keep things fair.
And I
You are
merely asked, how did
attempting-
it get there?
Sir, do not
I'm not
interrupt me,
entitled-
or you will
I'm not
forfeit your
entitled
right
to
to be
know how it got
present
there?
in this courtroom.
So
Do
you
not
holding me in
interrupt
contempt?
me.
Are you holding me in contempt?
I'm gonna make a record.
Are you holding me in contempt?
I'm not answering your questions.
So then you're not holding me in contempt.
Do not interrupt me again or you will go to the other courtroom.
Under what lawful law?
All right, he's interrupted me once again. We're gonna clear the courtroom. He's being disrespectful. I'll make a record once he moves. Unless you can promise me right now that you let me make my record without you interrupting me, sir.
You gonna make your record? You can make your record.
Then please don't interrupt me.
Don't hold me in contempt.
I've never said any such thing.
Removing me from the courtroom, Your Honor, is essentially holding me in contempt.
All right, no, you're forfeiting your right to be present under Illinois versus Allen.
I didn't forfeit anything.
I'm gonna start talking, and if he interrupts, then I will close this courtroom and he will be taken to the next courtroom. Mr. Brooks, you are well aware that the court made some pretrial rulings related to whether there would be, they can stay in, I haven't closed it yet, he's not interrupting me, whether the parties could approach the witness stand. And I did that because you're in custody and I'm not going to allow you to approach the witness stand while in custody. That is why various precautions have taken place to limit, frankly, that from happening. Throughout this trial, there was one instance at the very beginning of the case where I allowed the state to approach a witness. I corrected that. That hasn't happened since. We've had bailiffs take items up to the witness stand, or the items have been given to the witnesses, or they've been placed on the witness stand. That's proper. There is nothing wrong about that. Nobody's trying to pull a fast one over you. No one is doing something that's not permitted by this court, or frankly under the rules of decorum and courtesy or the presentation of evidence in this case. Frankly, from my perspective, sir, your attempts and your comments are to try to dig in at this jury and to somehow create doubt about the presentation of this case or the fairness of these proceedings without the party, meaning the state, having an opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. I've taken the jury out at this point to admonish you that any further mumbling under your breath or not recognizing when I uphold or sustain an objection, that I will take as a disrupting interruption meant to disrupt the proceedings. I'm not holding you in contempt. I'm well aware that that's one of my options. I choose not to do it for the reasons that I've stated on the record previously. All right, you can forfeit your right to be present at any point in time during this trial by your conduct under Illinois versus Allen. When it is disruptive, when it does not follow the simple rules of courtesy and decorum, I draw your attention once again to SCR Chapter 62, which has been previously provided to you, which is under the statute there. These constant mumbling and interruptions during the proceedings. I haven't made a record of them today, but I will now. Started at 9:01, then there was 5 at 9:02, 3 at 9:03, 4 at 9:04, 1 at 9:05, 2 at 9:05, 1 at 9:06, 3 at 9:08, again at 9:17, 9:27, 10:31, 1:05, there was talking over by you at 2:03, 5 interruptions at 2:14, 2:15, 2:17, at 2:19, audible muttering, 2:31, 2:33, what I would describe as inappropriate, like muttering under your breath, 2:35, at 3:06, there was the hilarious comment, at 3:11, there was what I would describe as arguing about the muttering and the irony of it all. At 3:12, there were 4 interruptions. At 3:37, more 4:09, 4:10, more mumbling. At 4:11, twice, and at 4:12, 9 different times. So I think I've made an ample record of the disruptions today. I've been abundantly patient with you. Again, as I stated earlier, I've even limited how I tell these things to the jury about how to disregard, and I simply say the jury is to disregard comments and statements made by the parties or the lawyers, as those are not evidence. So I'm warning you, do not interrupt again. If this jury comes back or when they come back and you do that, then you will be removed and you will forfeit your right to be present for the examination of this witness. Let's bring the jury back in.
Well, you might as well remove me then, because what you're doing is not fair. I can't even rebut what you're saying. I didn't interrupt you. I let you make your incorrect record.
Mr. Brooks, I'm bringing the jury out and we're continuing. We're going to get through these witnesses.
And I'm not stopping you from doing that.
Through your behavior, you're not going to delay these proceedings today.
I'm not trying to delay the
continue.
proceedings, so I wish you would stop being incorrect on the record and saying what I'm trying to do if you don't know that. You don't know what I'm trying to do.
I'm bringing the jury out. I'm not going to argue with you.
Then don't. Because I'm not arguing with you either. I'm stating facts.
You're raising your voice. It's
because
very
I'm tired of you always making a record.
At me.
You're making a record of me trying to look bad. I know what you're trying to do. It's not going to work.
I'm making a record of what's accurately
You're
being
making
done
a record of incorrect statements. That's what you're doing. You're not making a record of
Mr.
not
Brooks,
being
I'm
able.
advising you to be quiet because the jury's coming back out.
You're advising me to be quiet? Is you telling me to be quiet?
I'm advising you to be respectful when the jury
Are
comes
you telling
out.
me to be quiet, or are you asking me?
I'm asking you and advising
Okay.
you.
Thank you for correcting that, because don't nobody tell me what to do. I don't tell nobody else what to do.
I'd appreciate
We're all
if you
we're
lower
all
your tone
adults
of
in here.
voice
I've
and
never
not yell
told
at
you
me,
to do
sir.
anything at all.
Sir, I'd appreciate if your tone of voice would change.
I would appreciate if you would ask me. I'm a grown man with grown kids. Ain't nobody gonna talk to me like that. Nobody. I don't have a problem with doing what you ask me to do, not tell me. Just like when I asked you about subject matter jurisdiction that you have yet to prove on the record. But somehow I'm being intentionally disruptive. Come on, man. Stop. Just stop it.
Jury's coming out.
All rise for the jury.
Not gonna work. I'm supposed to be scared of getting removed or something.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Statement continue its examination of this witness. I believe we're on Exhibit 117.
Yes, we had 117. Madam Clerk, would you please turn the display back on? Mr. Johnson, were there other items on the front passenger seat besides the blue winter hat?
Objection leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
I do recall a cell phone being present on that front passenger seat.
Do you remember what kind of cell phone?
An iPhone.
I also see some items that look like maybe headphones or charging cable, something like that. Do you see that, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled. Foundational. The witness may answer. The exhibits have previously been received.
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
I do see that.
Do you remember something like that on the front passenger seat?
Yes.
Okay. And how about on the floorboard of the front passenger seat? Is there an item there, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
What do you remember that item was?
A TV.
Okay. And to the left of the TV, the white colored object?
I don't recall what that is.
Okay. But this is the exact way the passenger seat looked when you recovered the vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, if we could please go to Exhibit 116 and put up for the witness only. Sir, do you see Exhibit 116 in front of you?
I do.
Do you recognize this photograph?
I do.
Do you believe this to be a true and accurate depiction of the interior of the SUV?
Yes.
Move to admit 116, permission to publish.
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. Exhibit 116 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
What's in the photo of 116, please?
This is an overview of the rear passenger seat. That rear passenger compartment contained several clothing items and miscellaneous items.
Okay. And was the condition of the back seat like this when you found the vehicle, sir?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled, the witness may answer based upon his knowledge of recovering the vehicle from the scene and his training and experience.
Yes.
Now for the witness only, I'm going to please ask Ms. Gussie to put up 113, 114, and 115 for his review.
Go ahead.
Is 113 up?
Yes.
Okay, do you recognize that item?
I do.
Okay. Next, 114. Do you recognize 114?
Yes.
And 115, do you recognize 115? There it is.
I do.
Okay. Do you believe these three photographs truly and accurately depict the vehicle, these areas of the vehicle, sir?
Yes.
Move to admit 113, 114, and 115, permission to publish.
Exhibits 113, 114, and 115 are all received. Permission to publish granted.
Please.
Jury would let me know when the jury box monitors are on. All right, thank you very much.
All right. Please describe 113, sir.
That is an apparent fired bullet defect that's in the windshield of the Ford Escape.
Is that the rear view mirror on the left side of the picture?
Yes, this photograph would be from the inside looking through the windshield.
Were you able to tell the path of travel for the bullet?
Objection, speculative.
Please describe.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes. The fired bullet that caused this defect most likely came through that rear passenger window that was shattered and entered the vehicle and then exited the vehicle through the windshield.
You're watching the proceedings going on in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Certainly a trial that we've been watching very, very closely here on Live Now from Fox. Well, we're going to join our Fox 6 associates as the Waukesha County District Attorney winding down that case, the state's case. On a dramatic note, in the Daryl Brooks trial, prosecutors showed the jury physical evidence in and out of the courtroom stemming from that Waukesha Christmas parade attack. And now I want to be joined by Fox 6's Brett Lemoyne. What are we learning as they close in, as they slowly wrap up this trial here in Waukesha? Brett?
Yeah, well, Andy, today was all about the physical evidence. In fact, the jury got a little bit of a field trip this afternoon. They went to the other side of the courthouse here behind me into a garage, and they got to see that red SUV in person. Now, there were a lot of restrictions today, Andy. Our cameras were not even allowed to tag along. The jurors weren't allowed to speak or talk or take notes while they were there. Judge Jennifer Doro said that there were 2 recordings that were made, though, by deputies who were present. You're looking at video of one of those recordings from just before the jury arrived. Daryl Brooks initially said he didn't want to be there when the jury looked at the SUV, but eventually he decided to tag along. Prosecutors say Brooks drove the red Ford Escape through Waukesha's Christmas parade last November. 6 people were killed and dozens of others were hurt. Back in the courtroom, Waukesha Police Department Specialist Kyle Becker told the jury he found Brooks's clothes in a neighborhood near Dunbar and Maple Avenue. Becker says one of Brooks's sandals and Brooks's gray hoodie were found in a children's playhouse. The jury also saw the path that police say Brooks took after he left the parade route.
See anything of significance to this investigation in any of those videos?
Yes, there is a red sort of blur near the bottom of a driveway right before the intersection. And that is going to be Daryl Brooks on that sidewalk, and he's going to cross the street. It's another home security camera at 126 Central Avenue.
Excuse me.
Now, Andy, Judge Doro said that this morning a second juror tested positive for COVID. You might recall earlier this week, a juror was dismissed after reports of an illness. Today, we understand that the second juror that was testing positive for COVID actually remained with the jury. So now we still have 15 jurors, the 12 jurors, and then the now 3 alternates after that dismissal from earlier this week. There are indications now that the state may not wrap up its case today after all. This may spill into tomorrow as well. It's just wait and see now. Testimony still going on here in the courthouse behind me.
We were seeing the courtroom proceedings just before we took you live here, and Daryl Brooks was doing what Daryl Brooks has done for most of this trial. But you mentioned the jury there. Does that slow down this process at all for this trial, for the prosecutors, for Daryl Brooks himself?
Yeah, I would say it's caused a considerable delay throughout the last 3 weeks now. If you'll recall, prosecutors said that they initially hoped to wrap up their case last week, Thursday afternoon or Friday morning at the latest. So if that's any indication, I don't know what is, but that certainly is telling for a lot of reasons.
Well, Brett, we appreciate your continued coverage there in Waukesha, Wisconsin, here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll wrap up the prosecution side and we'll get into some jury deliberations over the next couple days. Thank you again, Brett, for joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to continue on here on Live Now from Fox. Certainly, we were just listening in there to the jury. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break to catch our breaths and then get back into this trial one more time on Live Now from Fox. Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. This is a live scene in Washington, D.C. as we're continuing to follow this ongoing developing story near the U.S. Capitol there, near the steps of the U.S. Capitol and SCOTUS, and also the Library of Congress in downtown Washington, D.C. What we do know is that 3 people have been detained, this according to the U.S. Capitol Police, while they continue to investigate this suspicious vehicle. This is ongoing for more than an hour now. As you can see, not a lot of movement as they're advising people to stay away from this scene there in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We really haven't seen a ton of new developments around this, but we will keep you updated on all of those scenes here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue on here on this Wednesday as it's just past 5:30 on the East Coast. And of course, we're following some of the biggest stories from around the country, including those breaking news stories live, raw, and unfiltered. Excuse me. We want to go now to Tampa as a 16-year-old was arrested in connection to a shooting on South Manhattan Avenue that critically injured a teen girl on Friday. I want to take you to a press conference from earlier today with Tampa police as they're providing an update on this situation from earlier.
We had a shooting across the street from Robinson High School. Two teenage girls decided that they were going to have a fist fight in the parking lot of the apartment complex across the street before they went to school that day. The fist fight was actually over a marijuana purchase. Imagine that from teenagers. But anyway, the victim in this case had been arguing with this other girl, and as the victim in the shooting left the fight to go across the street to school, she got shot one time in the back by an unknown suspect at the time. The suspect was wearing a ski mask, so it was difficult to obviously make a photo pack identification or a witness identification. We obtained leads, and our detectives tirelessly worked this case like it was, you know, I mean, they just worked endlessly on it, and they identified a suspect. The suspect's mother was very cooperative, obviously, since her son is going down the very wrong path, and they let the detectives search her apartment. In the apartment, they found a firearm. The firearm matched the shell casing that was found at the scene of the shooting. When confronted with that fact, the suspect confessed to the shooting. He is also 16 years old, and now his life is forever changed. 16-year-old Terrence Jones is charged with second-degree attempted murder with a firearm, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and aggravated battery with great bodily harm. The point I want to make about this case is that this 16-year-old boy's life is forever changed because he made a very, very bad decision. The 17-year-old victim's life is forever changed because she got shot in the back. These children that are making these bad decisions cannot take these decisions back. But the other point to reference is that these detectives solved this violent case within 4 days of it happening. And I think that that's important for the community to know that we are working tirelessly and we are working with great urgency in order to keep the community safe. Now switching gears to last night's homicide. Shortly after 8:30 p.m. last night, Tuesday night, October 18th, we responded to McDonald's at 4009 North Armenia in Tampa Bay. There in the parking lot, we found a 16-year-old male, deceased, shot once, we believe, to the upper body. And next to him is a firearm in the parking lot. Another child with a gun, deceased. Detectives spoke with witnesses at the scene, and they described the victim with some other juveniles and a vehicle driving by the McDonald's, and the vehicle, the people in the vehicle and the people in the McDonald's parking lot are exchanging gunfire. After the deceased falls in the parking lot, his three friends run away and leave him there in the parking lot. What we have found out since then is that this 16-year-old deceased individual is a suspect in an armed robbery that we're currently investigating. So again, another child making a very bad decision with firearms. The cause of the shooting and the beef between the vehicle, the occupants of the vehicle, and the suspects at the McDonald's is unknown at this time. We don't know what the argument is about. Obviously, this just happened. But we are appealing to the public for anyone who has any information to call Crime Stoppers if they remain to wish it, to remain anonymous, or let Tampa PD know what they know. Because at the end of the day, we can't have this violent crime going on at 8:30 at night on a weeknight at a busy intersection where there's people going to a fast food restaurant. The other thing is going back to the shooting across the street from Robinson High School, is that the victim's parents were cooperative in that. We need the community to know that children and a gun are a very bad mix. So we need parents to know that if they have a firearm in their home, to make sure it doesn't get into the hands of their children, make sure it's secured. Search your children's backpacks. Search your children's rooms. Make sure that these firearms are not ending up in the hands of children that really can't make good decisions with a gun. And I think if we as a community do better in regards to checking after our children, I think that we can get a handle on the violent crime, especially in these two cases. But make no doubt about it, Tampa PD has zero tolerance for gun violence in this city. Zero. And if you commit a crime with a gun in the city of Tampa, we are going to find you and we're going to arrest you. Thank you. Any questions? I'm very confident that she's going to survive. The wounds, thankfully, were relatively minor. She had to undergo surgery. She is going to be fine, thankfully. We don't know what, a firearm gunshot to the back could do, but in this case, she's going to be fine.
Steps that
Correct. Not yet. It's too early to tell. So we do know that there was a group of him and his, we assume friends that left him there as he's laying dead in the parking lot, and another vehicle had occupants in it and they were firing at each other. We know he's a suspect in an unrelated, as far as we know right now, armed robbery that happened about a week ago. But that's all unraveling as we speak. And I'd like to put all that together for you. What we need to let the public know is that we don't have any correlation that these are related. But he was in the parking lot with a firearm next to him. So clearly his intent for whatever he was doing last night was not good. Not yet, not yet. We're trying to work on that. Just like a lot of these cases, as you guys know, Tampa PD has solved a lot of our cases very, very quickly recently. The lit nightclub that we had down here where the shooting happened last weekend, we solved that within 48 hours. So we are going to work throughout the day to identify a vehicle description, a suspect description, and get that to you via video. I'm assuming at that busy intersection there's going to be businesses that have video cameras. No, not yet. They ran off and we don't even have them identified of who they were. We just know that he was with a group of 3 other people. Yeah, we know in the first case that the firearm belonged in the apartment that the juvenile lived with his sister and his mother. So I'm assuming it belonged to the mom. She was cooperative and she let us search. We found the firearm and it matched the ballistics. Which is why I think parents need to be cognizant of the fact that their kids can get their guns and do bad things with them. The gun last night that was used, we don't have, and the gun in the parking lot, we're still looking into where that came from. The kids at Robinson should have just gone to school that day. I think solving a dispute with a firearm changes the lives of everybody involved for the worse. And if we could have just gotten those children into school that day without bringing guns to a dispute, we would be in a much different position right now, just like last night.
What was the relationship between the person who did the shooting and the people involved in the argument? In other words, why was this person so invested in it?
Apparently the dispute was over a marijuana purchase. So not only are they bringing guns to a dispute, they're also drug dealing. There's, as far as we know, no family relation between the shooter and the victim. Thanks, everybody.
That was an update from Tampa police on a situation we were watching overnight. The teen was struck in the back, taken to a nearby hospital in critical condition, but she is said to have survived those injuries. We're continuing to follow multiple breaking news stories here on Live Now from Fox. This a scene in Washington, D.C. Police have 3 people in custody, the U.S. Capitol Police, that is, just outside of the U.S. Capitol, SCOTUS, and the Library of Congress. Right now, we don't know much information. All we know is that there is a suspicious vehicle, and they clearly have closed off this street there, just a few blocks away from the U.S. Capitol. We're going to take another quick break here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. We're approaching 5 o'clock Central Time, and that is when we're expecting the end of these proceedings for the day in that Daryl Brooks trial there, the Christmas parade attack that killed 6 and injured some 60 other people. Of course, prosecutors and the prosecution, they plan to rest their case today, but that may not be the case, according to our Fox 6 team there out of Milwaukee, out of Wisconsin, and Waukesha. We talked with Brett Lemoyne, who said they plan to rest their case today, but that may not just be possible with testimony and witness continuing on. So I want to tune in here as we'll wrap up the day in Waukesha as they continue to get testimony from various witnesses in this heartbreaking moment there from that Christmas parade attack last year.
Relevant, but not every single detail. Would that be fair to say?
This report is comprehensive in the terms of it lists every single item that was collected.
So why would you refer to it as a summary?
It's a summary of the examination and processing. That's the best way to describe it. It's not a dictation, in other words.
What do you mean by dictation?
There are other reports that other agencies may do that are dictated, right? I did this, then I did this, then I did this. This is a summary. This isn't a dictated report.
So what exactly did you summarize in your report?
My examination and processing strategies that I used, and the items of evidence collected, and any relevant findings associated with those examinations.
Did you do any examination of the cell phones?
No, I collected those and transferred those to a detective with the Waukesha Police Department.
Do you recall who that detective was?
David, his last name is spelt, I believe, F-O-Y-E-N, Foyen.
So at the time that you turned the phones over, did you do any more work in regards to the phones?
No.
Do you recall doing any investigation on the airbag control module?
No, I don't do that.
Do you recall obtaining a search warrant to conduct an inspection on the ACM?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
An inspection of what?
The ACM, I guess that would be the air control module. I'm guessing that's what that's
Thank you.
referencing.
No, since I don't do that type of analysis or examination, I didn't obtain any search warrant with that.
Any reason why I would say that in the paperwork?
Objection vague.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question. As to what paperwork you're referring to.
I'm guessing. I don't know what it will be called, but it says conclusion inspection summary. And the conclusion inspection or conclusion/inspection summary. Do you recall?
Is it from this witness?
Huh?
Is it from this witness?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't think that is from this witness, John. I don't see anything like that in this Exhibit 90. Are you perhaps still looking at Inspector Schultz's report from the State Patrol, the last witness?
What page number do you have? And I'll take a look at 90 and I'll compare it.
This says page 5.
Yeah, he's looking at the last exhibit from Inspector Schultz, 83.
What? It says Chief Christopher Johnson.
Oh, it does say that in 83. It says, if I can read for completeness, or you can, it says, upon arrival, I met with crime scene chief Christopher Johnson from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab.
No. That's not what I'm reading from.
Okay. Chief Johnson had obtained a search warrant to conduct the mechanical inspection and to image the data retained within the escape's airbag control module ACM.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that was written by Inspector Schultz, who just testified, not this witness. To clarify the record here.
Thank you.
I apologize for that. It's all in the same paperwork with Chief Johnson, so maybe that's where the confusion comes in.
The record would reflect this witness. His last name is Johnson, so I think that's
Yeah,
understandable.
I didn't know. I was just reading what I have here.
Fair enough. Keep going.
Do you recall at any time obtaining any type of search warrants pertaining to the vehicle in this incident?
Yes, I have obtained a copy of the search warrant.
And do you remember what that search warrant was for? What was the intended search?
To search the vehicle and process it for any biological fluids, hairs, fibers, any electronic equipment, any personally identifying information.
And the ACM would fall under the lines of the mechanical side of.
Yes.
Okay. At any time during your inspection, did you observe anyone try to start the vehicle?
When I was with Investigator Schultz, when he came to my laboratory, he attempted to start it.
And after you already stated that your initial part of your investigation before the report totaled 40 hours. At that time, after you had completed your report, did you do any more investigating in regards to the vehicle?
After my report was complete?
Yeah, after you had done the 40 hours that you stated with, and then the actual report.
No. Once my report's done, I didn't do any further examination of the vehicle.
And after that was completed, had you received any follow-up from law enforcement after you had completed everything?
No.
Had you yourself followed up with law enforcement about the investigation after you completed your initial part?
No.
You yourself didn't file any claims in this matter, did you?
No.
Do you know of anyone who filed any claims in this matter?
I don't.
And Do you recall who you were subpoenaed by to testify?
I was subpoenaed by District Attorney Sue Opper.
Do you recall when that was?
I believe it was sometime, I don't exactly recall when.
And did you follow up on that subpoena?
No.
After you had received it?
No.
Have you at any time seen or read any complaints in regards to this incident?
No.
Do you know who the plaintiff is in this matter?
The state of Wisconsin?
Would you label that as a person, an actual human? Grounds.
Sustained, not relevant.
You ever actually seen the plaintiff in this matter? Grounds.
Sustained.
If you saw the plaintiff, would you be able to identify the plaintiff?
Objection,
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Sustained pursuant to 9611. Sir, please move on to a different line of questioning.
You're just listening in to this Daryl Brooks trial in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Prosecutors were planning to rest their case in this Daryl Brooks trial, but that does not look to be the case there as that continues on possibly into tomorrow. We heard from our Fox 6 associates about this. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, one of the delays was just the outbursts and distractions throughout this case. I want to take you back to just a little bit ago as Daryl Brooks was talking, and the judge has a list of the distractions here on day 13 of this trial. Let's listen in on Live Now from Fox.
1, then there was 5 at 9:02, 3 at 9:03, 4 at 9:04, 1 at 9:05, 2 at 9:05, 1 at 9:06, 3 at 9:08, again at 9:17, 9:27, 10:31, 1:05, there was talking over by you at 2:03, 5 interruptions at 2:14, 2:15, 2:17, at 2:19, audible muttering, 2:31, 2:33, what I would describe as inappropriate, like muttering under your breath, 2:35. At 3:06, there was the hilarious comment. At 3:11, there was what I would describe as arguing about the muttering and the irony of it all. At 3:12, there were 4 interruptions. At 3:37, more 4:09, 4:10, more mumbling. At 4:11, twice, and at 4:12, 9 different times. So I think I've made an ample record of the disruptions today. I've been abundantly patient with you. Again, as I stated earlier, I've even limited how I tell these things to the jury about how to disregard, and I simply say the jury is to disregard comments and statements made by the parties or the lawyers, as those are not evidence. So I'm warning you, do not interrupt again. If this jury comes back or when they come back and you do that, then you will be removed and you will forfeit your right to be present for the examination of this witness. Let's bring the jury back in.
Well, you might as well remove me then, because what you're doing is not fair. I can't even rebut what you're saying. I didn't interrupt you. I let you make your incorrect record.
Mr. Brooks, I'm bringing the jury out and we're continuing. We're going to get through these witnesses. Okay?
And I'm not stopping you from
Through
doing
your
that.
behavior, you're not going to delay these proceedings today.
I'm not trying to
We're
delay
gonna
the
continue.
proceedings, so I wish you would stop being incorrect on the record and saying what I'm trying to do if you don't know that. You don't know
Mr.
what
Brooks,
I'm trying to
bringing
do.
the jury out. I'm not going to argue with you.
Then don't. Because I'm not arguing with you either. I'm stating facts.
You're raising your voice. It's
because
very
I'm tired of you always making a record.
At me.
You're making a record of me trying to look bad. I know what you're trying to do. It's not gonna work.
I'm making a record of what's accurately.
You're making
done
a record of incorrect statements. That's what you're doing. You're not making a record of
Mr.
not
Brooks,
being.
I'm advising you to be quiet because the jury's coming back out.
You're advising me to be quiet. Is you telling me to be quiet?
I'm advising you to be respectful when the
Are
jury
you
comes
telling
out.
me to be quiet, or are you asking me?
I'm asking you and advising
Okay.
you.
Thank you for correcting that, because don't nobody tell me what to do. I don't tell nobody else what to do.
I'd appreciate
We're all
if you
we're
lower
all
your tone
adults
of
in here.
voice
I've
and
never
not yell at
told
me,
you to
sir.
do anything at all.
Sir, I'd appreciate if your tone of voice would change.
I would appreciate if you would ask me. I'm a grown man with grown kids. Ain't nobody gonna talk to me like that. Nobody. I don't have a problem with doing what you ask me to do, not tell me. Just like when I asked you about subject matter jurisdiction that you have yet to prove on the record. But somehow I'm being intentionally disruptive. Come on, man. Stop. Just stop it.
Jury's coming out.
All rise for the jury.
Not gonna work. I'm supposed to be scared of getting removed or something.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. State may continue its examination of this witness. I believe we're on Exhibit 117.
Yes, we have 117. Madam Clerk, would you please turn the display back on?
Okay, so we just wanted to show you that exchange there. This has really been a days-long kind of epic argumentation between Daryl Brooks and Judge Darrow there in the Waukesha court. So many times he has been disruptive that she has had to ferry out the jury in order to admonish him there in court. That one was particularly heated and intense. You could really just see the exasperation on the judge's face. The proceedings are still ongoing right now. We were told that the prosecution intended to rest their case today, and we were just speaking with Fox 6 Milwaukee reporter Brett Lemoyne that it doesn't look like that's going to happen possibly tomorrow. And then, of course, Daryl Brooks will begin his defense and we'll call up his witnesses and the like. In the meantime, we want to take just a quick commercial break. Thanks for being with us on your Wednesday afternoon. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're going to take a quick commercial break. A lot more top headlines where that came from in just a moment.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us. Okay, let's go out to one of these other top stories that we are following out of the nation's capital. Take a look at some of this live video. We're being told that 3 people have been detained outside of the Supreme Court over this suspicious vehicle that has been parked there. Okay, so we're learning more from U.S. Capitol Police. They say our Hazardous Incident Response Division just cleared the vehicle, which was a small white van, they say. And they say they will be opening some streets and sidewalks shortly. So that is the latest development. We have this tweet from the Capitol Police. Let's put that up. 3 people, they say, are being detained while we continue to investigate. We will put out more confirmed information as we get it. Okay, but the latest tweet from them is what I just read. They say our Hazardous Incident Response Division just cleared the vehicle, a small white van, and we will be opening some streets and sidewalks shortly. Now, Fox News Capitol Hill correspondent Chad Pergram had tweeted out and intimated, and other reporters in the area are intimating that possibly some weapons were found in the vehicle. That has not been confirmed or corroborated just yet. We'll wait for official sources to say if they have found weapons or if they haven't. But back out live to the scene itself. Okay, so if you're familiar with Washington, D.C., this is right outside the Supreme Court and the Library of Congress. They're right next to each other. And this is not very far from the U.S. Capitol. Take a look at the U.S. Capitol building right there, not too far away. It's a little after 6 o'clock there. Gorgeous twilight sky. But lots of U.S. Capitol Police officers have descended on this area. They've closed off streets. We were also being told that some of these buildings had been evacuated as a precaution, including the Library of Congress. So this is it live. Take a look at what it looked like just a few minutes ago. This was the scene. You can see just a lot of police cars, vehicles that, conduct these hazardous operations and incident responses in order to determine that there really are no threats to whatever this suspicious vehicle was doing there. Why was it there? And who, I'm curious, are these 3 people that have been detained? And you can parse the difference, obviously, between the words detained and arrested. So in the meantime, we'll keep you up to speed on this story here, but that's the latest. That's what we know from the U.S. Capitol Police, that they have announced this vehicle has been cleared, this small white van, and they'll be opening some streets and sidewalks very, very shortly here. Okay, a lot of news going on in Washington. Of course, we've heard from President Biden a couple of times today. He held an event as well, not only making that announcement about, drawing even more from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in order to offset some of these high gas prices, but he was also talking about the bipartisan infrastructure bill. We've heard a lot of candidates tout the passage of that on the campaign trail. President Biden doing just that today. Let's listen in.
Look at that screen.
So great.
Pretty good. Hello, everybody. Well, good afternoon, and I want to thank Secretary Granholm and everyone on the screen for being part of this today. And it's been a rough 4 or 5 years for the country, but a lot of folks here are still struggling. But there's some real bright spots. 10 million new jobs have been created just since my presidency began. 3.5% unemployment, the lowest in 50 years. Nearly 700,000 manufacturing jobs created since I took office, and y'all are going to create a lot more up there on the screen. And some people gave up on American manufacturing, but not me, not the secretary, not the American people. Because where in the heck is it written that we can't be the manufacturing hub of the world? Well, we are now, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's about my industrial strategy to bring America back, manufacturing and industries and for the future, semiconductors and clean energy. That includes the bipartisan infrastructure law that I signed, and it was a once-in-a-generation investment in our nation's roads, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, water systems, and high-speed internet. Federal infrastructure funding is helping states and cities with these projects all across the country. But the infrastructure law also invests in people and companies that are going to build our future, like electric vehicles and advanced batteries that are going to power those vehicles. This is critically important because the future of vehicles is electric. But the battery is a key part of that electric vehicle. And right now, 75%, as the folks on the screen can tell you, 75% of that battery manufacturing is done in China. And for some battery components, critical materials, China controls nearly half the global production. But China's battery technology is not more innovative than anyone else's. In fact, our national labs, our research universities, our automakers led the development of this technology here in America. But by undercutting U.S. manufacturers with their unfair subsidies and trade practices, China seized a significant portion of the market. Today, we're stepping up to hold, to take it back, not all of it, but bold goals and actions to make sure we're back in the game in a big way. And we're doing it right away, centered around workers and communities and building the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. Last year, I signed an executive order setting the goal of having 50% of all new cars and trucks sold by 2030 to be electric vehicles. Auto companies, unions, and the federal government are all working together to meet this goal. I signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest investment in climate ever in all of history. It includes tax credits for up to $7,500 for folks to buy new electric vehicles or fuel cell vehicles made in America. And for the first time, you get a tax credit for buying a used electric vehicle. The CHIPS and Science Act that I signed into law is literally supercharging our efforts to make semiconductors, those small computer chips that power our everyday lives, including our vehicles here in America. And the infrastructure law is investing $7.5 billion to build electric vehicle charging stations all across America. So finding a place to charge up your vehicle is going to be as easy as pulling into a gas station. So earlier today, I talked about our efforts to keep gas prices down at the pump without delaying or deferring our transition to clean energy. Electric vehicles are part of that plan. And since I took office, electric vehicle sales have more than tripled. But with more electric vehicle sales, the demand for batteries and the critical minerals that go into those batteries has grown and is going to continue to grow. In fact, the demand for critical materials is set to skyrocket by 400% to 600% over the next several decades. The demand for minerals like lithium and graphite is expected to increase by as much as 4,000%. Some see a challenge, but we see an opportunity, a real opportunity, to shift to a net zero sum carbon world in one of the most significant economic transitions since the Industrial Revolution. That's not hyperbole, that's a fact. We're also confronting it head on with American ingenuity and American jobs. That's why my infrastructure law invested over $7 billion in battery supply chains that are going to bolster U.S. capacity for processing, manufacturing, and recycling critical minerals like lithium, nickel, and graphite. And that's why today I'm proud to announce $2.8 billion in awards to 20 companies represented on this screen across 12 states funded by the infrastructure law to build electric vehicles in a battery future here in America. Nearly 200 companies applied for these grants. Only 20 were selected, from Georgia to North Carolina to Nevada to the state of Washington. We have awarded this funding, and we've asked companies how they're going to partner with community colleges, minority-serving institutions, labor unions, and local organizations to provide job training for workers and benefits for the whole community. Together, these 20 companies are going to build new commercial-scale battery production and processing facilities all across America. They're going to develop lithium to supply over 2 million vehicles every year. And that $2.8 billion investment is going to unlock billions of dollars in private investment from these companies. That means the projects are going to generate $9 billion total for American manufacturing and the battery supply chain across America. And that's going to create thousands of good-paying jobs, many of them union jobs that require college degrees, that don't require, I should say, college degrees. You know, on top of the $9 billion, since I became president, other companies, including GM, Ford, Honda, Siemens, have announced over $100 billion in new investments to produce electric vehicles, batteries, and charging stations here in America, creating thousands more jobs. Today, I'm announcing the launch of the American Battery Materials Initiative. It's going to coordinate the effort across the federal government and work closely with the private sector, labor unions, tribes, community organizations, and our partners and allies abroad. This initiative is going to be led by the White House and housed in the Department of Energy with the support of the Department of Interior to secure America's electric vehicle, battery supply chain, and clean energy future. And we're going to do it the right way, respecting the rights of tribes, creating good-paying union jobs, and protecting the environment and local communities. Folks, one more thing about how we're going to do this. You may have seen the news reports describing Republicans who voted against the infrastructure bill, attacking Democrats for passing it because it's socialism. Well, now quietly and privately, they're sending me and the administration letters asking for money from the same bill, talking about how important the projects would be for their districts if we just got them the money. I was really surprised to find out there were so many socialists in the Republican caucus. But even if they voted against it, I made a promise when I was running and when I got elected. I'd be the president for all Americans. So we're going to build a better America together, whether they voted for it or not. If the district deserves the project, they're going to get it. Let me close with a question. I asked many business leaders, when the United States decides to invest considerable resources in a new industry that we need to build up, does that encourage or discourage businesses from getting in the game? And the answer is it encourages them to get in the game in a significant way. Federal investments attract private investments. It creates jobs and industries. It demonstrates we're all in this together. And that's what today's about. I've never been more optimistic about America's future. We just have to remember who in God's name we are. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity if we work together. And with that, let me turn it over to Secretary Granholm. Madam Secretary.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for inviting me to be part of this today. This moment is one of... You're a critical part of this. You're not just invited. Well, I know, but I just feel like this especially, for so many reasons, is one of the greatest pleasures of serving in your administration, because I can't help but think back to a call that I received from your office.
Okay, so we were just listening to President Biden. He's being joined by his Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, to talk about the bipartisan infrastructure bill. She's been out there a lot, kind of selling it, the contents of it. It's one of the president's major legislative accomplishments. Okay, I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here. Let's go and stay in Washington. Take a look at this scene right now. We are getting more details from the U.S. Capitol Police about this suspicious white van, this vehicle that they are clearing as we speak. And they have just put out some recent tweeted updates. Let me read those out to you because we are learning more information. Okay, so this is what we know. Like we reported about 20 minutes ago, they say our Hazardous Incident Response Division just cleared the vehicle, a small white van, and you can see that van right there.
They say we'll be opening some streets and sidewalks shortly. Now, the Capitol Police went on to say that this afternoon our officers noted the van was illegally parked. Then a canine alerted the officers, which prompted the search. 2 men and a woman were detained. One of the men told us he had guns in the van. The officers found 3 guns, 2 handguns, and a shotgun. Weapons are prohibited on Capitol grounds, the police say. They say they're still investigating and will put out a news release later today. Please follow this account there for the latest information. If you want to follow that on Twitter, we'll bring you the latest information here on Live Now from Fox, as we always do. But it does seem like more answers to this scene that we have been showing you for, well over the afternoon here. So, 2 men and 1 woman have been detained, and weapons have been found inside the van, 2 handguns and a shotgun. So we also are being told that some of the streets are going to be opening up around here. They were closed as this investigation proceeded. So hopefully we get a little more details on, who these individuals are, why they were in Washington, D.C., why they parked there. Maybe we'll get some of that a little bit later. Okay, we're going to take just a quick commercial break. More where that came from in just a moment. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Well, we just showed you what President Biden has been up to today. Let's show you what the First Lady has been up to today. She was in Washington. She traveled to the DNC headquarters, thanking staff, thanking volunteers there as we approach the midterm elections, now less than 3 weeks away. Let's listen in to the First Lady, who herself now out on the campaign trail.
Good morning. How are you all doing today? Good. Okay. It's easily visible that I'm super excited to be here with you all. It gives me great pride and joy to be able to set the stage for our nation's First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, who is first an educator. She embodies the heart of teachers. As you all know, she continues to teach English and writing to students at the community college. Dr. Biden teaches her students with a whole lot of heart and passion, along with a sincere conviction that education has the power to transform our lives. She is humble, she's brilliant, she is fierce. allow me the space to tell you 2 quick stories that illustrate what she means to me. Some of you may know that in May of 2021, Dr. Biden surprised me at my school with the most magnificent bouquet of flowers to recognize me as the 2021 National Teacher of the Year. This moment meant so much to me because when someone puts flowers in your arms, you know they see you. As the kids today say, to get your flowers means to acknowledge someone in the present for what they mean to you. So today, I'm here to give Dr. Biden her flowers for what she means to our nation's teachers and students. The act of Dr. Biden showing up for one teacher symbolized what education and teachers mean to this country. But see, Dr. Biden didn't stop there. She recognized and thanked educators, but her work and contributions to education go so much deeper. That following October, in fact, a year ago yesterday, all the state Teachers of the Year from 2021 were invited to the White House for a ceremony. I was to give a speech on the White House lawn. A remarkable privilege for a first-generation immigrant like me. But the truth is, I was continuously working through a very real and very frightening public speaking anxiety. Made my job a little hard. As I gave my speech on the White House lawn, I froze. In front of my colleagues, the Secretary of Education, the First Lady, national media, I froze and my anxiety kicked in. But before I knew it, Dr. Biden had left her post on the stage and wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "It's gonna be okay." Hearing her words snapped me back into my purpose, and I turned to the audience and I said, "Dr. Biden just said it's gonna be okay, so it's gonna be okay." From that moment on, I could now turn to teachers and tell them it's going to be okay, because I knew people like Dr. Biden were working so hard to make things better for us all. After the ceremony, I turned to Dr. Biden to thank her for saving me. She stopped and gave me a stern look only teachers can give. And she said, "I didn't save you. You don't need to be saved. I hope you keep telling your story. The world needs to hear your story." Something in me clicked and shifted. At that moment, after that moment, I knew I would be ready to give speeches to any size. Still full of nerves, but confident that my story matters. Dr. Biden, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing our nation's educators. Thank you for all you do to elevate education. Now, it's my honor to give you your flowers, symbolically. They were given to her in the backstage. But it's my honor to present to you our schools and communities family.
Thank you, Juliana. You can see why she is Teacher of the Year, can't you? You know, I always feel so inspired when she talks about the profession that we love so much, and that's all we were talking about backstage. She's such an incredible teacher, and she makes me so proud to be an educator. I first learned about this great organization back in 2019 when I met with Elaine Wynn, and I was so moved by her passion and her dedication to community schools. And there is no better advocate than Elaine. And so it's an honor to be with all of you today. Last week, I sat next to a mom named Koa at a homework diner. Have you ever heard of that? No? Well, they make the actual auditorium into a diner where they serve food and everything, because I thought I was actually going to a diner, but I was going to the school auditorium. Anyway, it was hosted by a community school in Milwaukee. And as we got to know each other, she shared how difficult her path had been. Her mother died when she was a young girl, and she was a single mom of 4 kids. Now, she relied on her dad for support, but then he passed away from COVID last year. And like so many working parents, she just does her best. And she tries to take it one day at a time. But when Koa brings her family to the homework diner, she doesn't have to worry about making dinner that night or cleaning up. Instead, she laughs with her head back when her kids tell her their stories. And she's able to check in with their teachers because the teachers sit there right with you having dinner. And so, she can ask questions about the math that is so different from, heck, let's face it, when we all grew up, right? And, homework gets done right there at the dinner. So it's like such a great idea to have the parents and the teachers together and the kids and great food. And when they leave there, that, Koa knows that though she's a single mom, she's not in this alone. Because schools have always been the heart of our communities, where students learn to be good citizens and where families can come together for a common cause, where towns find pride. And there is no better place to support families because you all know this, kids can't learn when their stomachs are empty. They can't master reading when they need glasses or concentrate when maybe there's a little bit of trouble at home. Students perform their best and are happiest when their parents and their educators work together, when their families get the support they need as soon as they need it. Communities in Schools was founded on that idea. And for decades, you've brought resources to students tailored to the unique needs of every community in an environment that children and families already trust, their schools. And after the disruptions of the pandemic, your work has become even more important. Whether it's organizing a school food pantry, or setting up after-school tutoring, or working with the community to bring in doctors and counselors and health specialists, you're giving families the support they need to thrive. And our administration is here to help with your efforts. We safely reopened schools and are addressing the academic and mental health needs of our students. We're providing funding to hire more mental health professionals and create wraparound support. And I'm sure that you've all seen this. I mean, I know I'm seeing it in my classroom this past year, how much students need help with mental health. And with partners like CIS, the Biden-Harris administration launched the National Partnership for Student Success to help increase the number of tutors and mentors in our schools. I mean, I truly believe in mentoring and the power of those connections with our kids. I do it at my school, at Nova. This work just doesn't help families. It's crucial for supporting educators as well. When we lighten the burden on teachers, they can do what they do best: teach, counsel, create, and inspire. In fact, educators tell us when CIS services are in their schools, they are better able to improve student achievement and get more satisfaction from the work that they do. Thank you. See, I knew Joe would do such good things as president. Honestly. To some people, schools may seem common, you know, the fluorescent lights, the felt walls, the same simple classroom, again and again. Those people don't know what happens in schools, is anything but ordinary. But we do. Because we know how an idea can light up a pair of young eyes. That teaching is an art where black and white words can open a rainbow bridge to uncharted worlds. That our classrooms are a place where students find pieces of themselves, hidden and waiting to be discovered, transforming them into something new. That every day, because of this work, a student somewhere is standing a little taller, working a little harder, being a little braver, because their school helped them find the kindness, confidence, and courage that they need. That is what it's all about. The connections we build, the communities we create. So thank you for your work and your dedication. Thank you for lifting up our students and their families. I cannot wait to see the magic that you all make. Thank you.
Okay, so we were just listening into the First Lady there at the Communities in School Leadership Town Hall in Washington. She was also speaking to DNC staffers and volunteers, thanking them for all that they're doing ahead of the midterm elections. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're going to take just a quick commercial break. A lot more stories and headlines where that came from in just a moment. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Let's get into some of these weather headlines as well. Take a look at some of these pictures there from, this is in Oregon. This is courtesy of the Oregon State Police. Earlier today, State Police had said and reported that at least one person died after more than 60 cars piled up here and crashed on I-5 in Oregon. Authorities are blaming the crash on weather conditions and dense fog. Several vehicles involved are said to have rolled over completely. Multiple injuries have been reported. The extent of those injuries, though, are unclear. We do know, though, unfortunately, one person died after this major car pileup involving upwards of 60 vehicles on I-5 there in Oregon. So you can see how dense the fog is, making for really low visibility conditions. Okay, in the meantime, let's move to Florida now, as, of course, today is the 3-week anniversary since Hurricane Ian made landfall as a Category 4 storm. One of the strongest storms in the state's history overall. It left more than 100 people dead, and the cleanup still continues, but schools are reopening, roads are reopening, major causeways and bridges are reopening as well. Take a look at this tweet here. This is from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He says 3 weeks ago, Hurricane Ian destroyed the Sanibel Causeway in 3 places, leaving the island of Sanibel isolated. Today, we have reopened the causeway for our residents after completing temporary repairs more than a week ahead of schedule. Way to go. Okay, let's listen in to Florida Governor DeSantis on this occasion today.
Got everybody? Well, good morning. 3 weeks ago, Hurricane Ian destroyed the Sanibel Causeway in 3 different places. But today, I'm happy to report that starting at 11 a.m., the causeway will be reopened for the citizens of Lee County. We have had after search and rescue and some of those things were going, there was talk about how do we get more people back onto Sanibel. We were helicoptering in power people, boating people in, but at the end of the day, you really need to make it work. You need to be able to get people over there on vehicles. And so we worked with FDOT to develop a plan and implement a plan to make the temporary repairs necessary to the Sanibel Causeway to get people back over there. As many of you seen, this was really significant damage, more significant than even the Pine Island Bridge. We had an ambitious agenda and an ambitious roadmap to get this done by the end of October, but I'm happy today by opening it today. We're way ahead of schedule, and even when we got ahead of schedule initially saying October 21st, we've been able to beat that as well. So delivering results, and we had over 100 crews working round the clock, 36,000 work hours to make repairs. And as you see, there's multiple points across this causeway, and you're talking about bridge approaches, roadway restoration. You have to do analysis to make sure the bridge is stable. We had 70 pieces of heavy equipment operating daily, 4 barges, 7 cranes, 2 dredges, 5 boats, heavy-duty dump trucks, dive teams with underwater survey equipment. They used 8,200 loads of dirt, fill dirt, 2,400 loads of rock, and 4,000 tons of asphalt. So these repairs, while temporary, are really going to help get the residents of this island back on track. They're going to be able to go and be at their property, going to be able to help with the restoration efforts. Of course, we did a one-time massive convoy last week to be able to get the power trucks out there. And it was something that's been good. I'll tell you, being out on that island yesterday when we did the checks for the firefighters, there's been huge progress made, particularly with the power infrastructure. You know, there's more that needs to be done, but man, some of that stuff was really, really bad. And if we had not done that one-time convoy, we wouldn't have made even a fraction of the progress. Now that you have this, it's going to be easier to get more people on there. So we are going to continue to work with the county on plans for permanent repairs to the causeway. How it's operated is this is not something the state is controlling, so you talk to your local folks about that, but we're happy to be able to take the lead on the restoration. And so we appreciate Secretary Jared Perdue for being down here, really ensuring that we cut through red tape and that we understood that time is of the essence. When you have real significant damage like that, you can't let it toil for months without attention. We needed to get people back as soon as possible, and so that's what we've been able to do. And this is really the second big success after the restoration of the Pine Island Bridge. That was something people thought wasn't going to be able to fix for a long time. Some of the residents there reached out to me, asked if we could help at the state. And I said, yeah, we want to be helpful. What are our options? FDOT came in, looked. We said we thought we'd be able to do it in a week, and I think we finished it in 3 days. And people have been, now Pine Island, they have restoration of the services because you've gotten massive trucks. Publix was going in, opening. And so, you know, they suffered significant damage, but this is huge for them to be able to bounce back. So we were happy to be able to do that. And what happened was, after the bridge got restored, we had Duke Energy, who sent a lot of trucks down here to help assist with LCEC with the restoration. So there was significant damage, there were poles snapped, there were power lines down. They initially thought that it would probably take until October 25th, but it was actually completed 9 days before that on Sunday. And so that was a real rapid restoration, but that would not have been possible without the temporary repairs to the Pine Island Bridge. And so it's really instrumental in breathing life back into the Pine Island community. And you had Duke Energy had 641 Pine Island personnel. They replaced 645 poles, straightened 365 other poles, installed 284 transformers and 328 cross arms, and picked up 1,655 spans of wire from the ground to do this full restoration. And so we're really excited that that's been done. Now, they're still working, of course. Repairs on Sanibel are ongoing. We had barges going to the island. We did helicopter people in. Of course, doing the convoy over the causeway was huge. These trucks, you got a lot of trucks, you got a lot of people working there. You have 600 restoration crew members from both LCEC and FPL, as well as some others, and they are laying the groundwork to full restoration of Sanibel. But that requires repairing transmission lines, rebuilding the island substation, removing vegetation, and setting poles. Restoration is ongoing. Obviously, we want it to be as quick as possible, but there was significant damage, and I would say probably more damage to the power infrastructure on Captiva Sanibel than on Pine Island and even on Fort Myers Beach. So they're working hard on it. Remember, there's crews are working, so as the citizens go back over to the island, just be cognizant of the folks that are working and do your part to make sure that they have the ability to continue to work without delay. They do think that they're going to have a significant percentage, maybe over 25% of customers that can receive power have the lights on this week, maybe as early as tomorrow. And this will be things like fire stations, include things like fire stations, the elementary school, and then portions of neighborhoods in the central portion of Sanibel and Captiva. And they're going to continue to do that. Obviously, the customers need to be restorable. If you're not restorable, then you're going to have an electrician go in there and fix some of the things that were destroyed. Now, Upper and North Captiva should expect the restoration efforts to take a little bit longer. They had an underground grid, and you know, the underground actually performed very well in many parts of Florida. The problem is, you know, this was basically ground zero, so a lot of that got torn up and is requiring a complete rebuild. So they're working hard on it, but that is likely going to take, that will likely be done sometime in November. So we've had a great effort from the FDOT team, first responders, power companies to make repairs, remove debris, rebuild infrastructure for areas that have been impacted severely by Hurricane Ian. I want to thank the crews for FDOE. They did cut and toss operations, not just in this area, but throughout the entire state. and that has really helped pave the way for folks to come in here and work. And I also want to thank the folks that were involved in this effort, who were contracted out to do it. They're going to be talking about this for a long time. I mean, I think like people in other parts of the country instinctively know, if this had happened in some of their tape, it would have taken 6 months just to get through the red tape. I mean, there's no way they would have rebuilt a causeway in 3 weeks. So I think it's great for the residents here to be able to get back. I also think it's something that shows a little bit of a can-do spirit for a change, and maybe we should just focus on getting things done and not be mired in bureaucracy all the time. So we're going to continue to work really hard on all these efforts. I'm excited about the progress. I understand that there's a lot of days ahead, but the camaraderie and the teamwork and the unity has been fantastic. And I think that that's a testament to the folks down here and the folks that have been working on this effort. So, all right, we're going to hear from a number of people, starting with our FDOT Secretary, Jared Perdue.
Thank you, Governor, and again, thank you for your leadership. It's incredibly gratifying to be here today and have been part of this historic partnership. Getting the Sanibel Causeway open so quickly as we have just done is due to Governor DeSantis' unconditional support and leadership that brought all these pieces together. It's really incredible what you can accomplish when you cut through the red tape, as the governor mentioned, and you align behind a common set of goals, a common mission to help people. And people on this project truly have worked together day in and day out, many sleepless nights. What many thought would take 6 months, the governor pushed us to do it faster, and we delivered, and incredibly proud to be part of this team, Governor. Thank you. Operations at this project site have literally been 24/7 for the past 15 days to get the work done. Today marks 10 days ahead of our originally planned schedule. And as you heard, the resources and people that it took to do this that the governor mentioned, it truly is amazing. I can't mention enough how proud I am of our FDOT team and our contractors, and a huge thanks is also owed to all of our partners. To name a few, Lee County, Ajax Paving, Superior Construction, Demoya Construction, and Vulcan Materials helped deliver this project. Director Kevin Guthrie with DEM has been an incredible support mechanism through this entire response. The Florida Highway Patrol has been there with us day in and day out. Lee County Sheriff's Office has been incredible support. The City of Sanibel and the Federal Highway Administration, who's actually been at the table with us the whole time, working through solutions. While work here has been underway, FDOT and Lee County have also been performing temporary repairs on 4 other county-owned bridges in Lee County on the south side of Fort Myers Beach. Temporary repairs at Big Carlos Pass, Big Hickory, Little Carlos Pass, and New Pass are also complete and now open to residents, and again speaks to the governor's leadership in tearing down barriers and getting things done so people can recover quicker. As you can see, our team is no stranger to a challenge, and when these challenges impact the very well-being of our fellow Floridians in some of their most difficult moments in life, our team has stepped up and plans to be here every step of the way. Thank you, Governor. Proud to be on this team.
Okay. Mayor Holly Smith.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here on what will prove to be one of our days in history for Lee County and for the city of Sanibel. I'm glad you're a part of it. On September 28th, Hurricane Ian cut a swath of destruction throughout our beautiful sanctuary island that was unprecedented. The storm surge, ranging from 8 to 12 feet, pushed homes from their foundations, while winds broke through structures and stripped the foliage from our lush vegetation. The combination of wind and storm surge cut off Sanibel's lifeline to the mainland when it breached the causeway in 5 places. As we assess the damage from boats and photographs, the sheer magnitude of the repairs settled in, and we prepared ourselves for many months of reconstruction as we began to plan for barge and ferry service. But on October 4th, Governor Ron DeSantis charged the Florida Department of Transportation with making temporary repairs to the causeway by the end of October. Because of the governor's leadership and determination, and because of the technical and project management expertise within DOT, we will, within minutes, reconnect Sanibel Island to the shores of Lee County and expedite our recovery from this hurricane. I want to thank Governor DeSantis for being a man of action and delivering not only the repairs to this causeway.
Okay, we're going to step away from this right now, but you've been listening in there on Sanibel Island. The causeway that was damaged during Hurricane Ian now back open. That is really just a feat of human will, human engineering to get that up and running again. The storm made landfall 3 weeks ago today. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're coming up on the 4 o'clock hour here.